Greetings.
Hello.
My greetings. Well met. Greetings, traveler. Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to episode 213 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. From Gadgetstan, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, as always, it's Botticus.
Hello and welcome to episode 213 of Battlegrounds Concede, a Battlegrounds podcast dedicated to making the Battlegrounds side of the game more accessible to you.
Or should we say like
Battlecus.
Coin Tech Up, maybe? Maybe that can be our new podcast?
Oh no, I was going to be Sell Minion Concede.
Yes.
Turn 2, Sell Concede.
Yeah. And then Appa won't be joining us this week. He's got some personal stuff going on, but we do have a very special guest. Live from Bob's Tavern, Florida, we have the great ChanManV.
Hey guys, what's up? I like the Battlegrounds. This could officially be called the first Battleground podcast ever created.
It is. You're right. We're going to take credit for that. I think we'll do that. It's the first official Battlegrounds podcast, except we may continue talking about ladder on occasion. We'll see what happens. But we will tell everyone that is listening we will have a separate, specific, full Battlegrounds episode. It is planned to come out next Tuesday just in time for the open beta. So stay tuned to that. That's going to be all the strategy deep dive. Because we try to do that all in the same episode. It's what we have planned. It would be 4 hours, and we just don't have time for that.
That's true.
Yes.
And yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. I'm excited to be on the show.
Of course. Well, we saw your tweet. You're a very busy man, and we'll talk about that in the interview. And Value Town, unfortunately, is on hiatus. But how can you not talk about everything that happened this week? There's so much.
I know, man. Blizzcon was really good this year. You know, it was a little bit skeptical about whether it was going to be gooder this year with just all the craziness. But in the end, I think everything worked out, and we got back to playing games and talking about games, and they had a lot of announcements.
Yes, and we will definitely talk about that, but first we want to learn about you. But first, we want to thank our listeners. Concede is supported in large part by you, listener. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/CoinConcede. Big thanks to Will Ann as our newest patron, and also, if you want to support us, you can leave an iTunes review. Really helps other people find the show. So our guest, if you don't know him, shame on you. Welcome, ChanMan, to the podcast. For those who may not know you, ChanMan, what's your background in just kind of in gaming in general? How did you find your way into games as pastime or a career? And how did you find your way to Blizzard and Hearthstone?
Yeah, so games, I mean, I think it's the same story with all of us. I mean, we've been gaming since we were little kids. I mean, I can't even remember, to be honest, like a time where I wasn't gaming. So, yeah, just gamed ever since I was a little kid. Got pretty serious about gaming, and a lot of people don't know this, by the way. It was so funny because I was looking at our juked PR or just our press release, and it has this in it, which was I was pretty serious with Warcraft 2 and NBA 2K7 at one point. Just during college days or just out of the college. And like I was one of the top players in NA during the time.
Was that Tides of Darkness, the classic world?
It was Tides of Darkness. Those early times in Tides of Darkness. So it was just when IPX networks were, like the playing online and on BattleNet. It was pre that. So we actually had to have this thing called Kali that somebody at Texas A&M wrote. Yeah. So I dominated that period. I'll just be frank. I dominated that period of Warcraft 2, which was pretty eye opening, and that time period kind of allows me to relate a little bit with some of the crazy pro players and just the the focus and obsession you need to have to be at that level. But I was also a top 32 player in NBA 2K7 too. I actually played for, I think it was either 25 or 50,000, like way back in 2007. Just in NBA 2K7. So kind of a little bit serious with that. I actually got burnt out during that time, so I wasn't a huge Brood War, like StarCraft 1 and Brood War player. And during that time is when esports, or at least I feel like this age of esports kind of first started, just with everything in Korea. So that kind of that time kind of passed me by, I guess, a bit. I wasn't following it very closely and really more focused on my career as a software developer. But then StarCraft 2 came out, and I just started getting into MLGs and just the whole pro scene, or just the esports scene. And I was getting coaching from like In Control and Machine and those guys. And then somebody convinced me just to start a show one day. And so I just taught myself how to stream, back when Day 9 had that tutorial on, I don't know if you guys ever watched it, but he had a tutorial on how to stream with Adobe and, encoders. This was like when it was hard, it
We're
wasn't like
going
OBS.
back a day.
Yes,
Yeah.
way, way back when it was tough to do that. And I was streaming on live stream at the time. And that's when my first show started. My first esport podcast show. It was called Coaching Corner first, and then I changed it to Pro Corner because everybody kept confusing Coaching Corner with a hockey show. So I changed it to Pro Corner, where basically people would come and coach me, kind of like Mr. Bitter's 12 Weeks. That was like my inspiration. So I would have like StarCraft 2 pros come and coach me, and then we would, we'd just make it available for everybody to learn some stuff. So that kind of picked up some traction in the StarCraft 2 scene. Then I started another podcast called Climbing the Ladder, which was the probably the first or one of the first podcasts, along with the executive, to talk about the business side of esports. So we had a lot of team owners and CEOs of big organizations, TOs and whatnot on the show. And then that turned into Unfiltered eventually, which I think a lot of people know me from, with Richard and Steven. And then on the Value Town, when Hearthstone started, I got really, really started really early with Value Town with Crip and Trump. Crip and Trump were my first co-hosts. It's like crazy to think about that now.
The history, the Hearthstone history that's here. And that's a lot of podcasts you've done, but starting with Trump and Crip, I mean, they were the juggernauts. You could have maybe gotten like Artosis.
We started big.
You could have gotten Artosis for a second.
Yeah. Could have gotten Dan. I think Dan might have had his own podcast at the time. But yeah, so we had we did that for a while, which was super fun. And I continued doing Value Town for a while, and then I took a hiatus for a while, then came back, and so yeah, I've been doing podcasts for a long time, and at this point, I've unfortunately had to stop doing podcasts because of Juked, which bums me out, because I definitely love talking about, obviously, the games I love and everything going on in the communities. But that's kind of why I was like looking for an avenue to talk about BlizzCon, and I just couldn't. I didn't have time to actually do Value Town or bring it back for an episode. So that's why I really appreciate you guys inviting me to the show.
Of course, man. It's I mean, Value Town was an institution but like podcasting, it's kind of hard to explain, especially to those who may not have done it. It takes a lot of time, and especially if you want to know what's happening, and if you want to do all the production stuff, there's a lot of time invested there. And I imagine there's also a lot of time invested in starting a new business.
Yeah, for sure. No, podcasting, I think that podcasting is really interesting, because I think a lot of people started off, or maybe even still, think podcasts are like a video thing. You know what I mean? And especially in our industry, or in our community, everywhere outside of our community, everybody knows podcasts are audio only. And they're very, very different things. And that's speaking from somebody who approached it the same way. I approached it as more of a video podcast, and it turned out that podcasts, like, as I was doing it more and more, I realized that the medium was really more suited for audio, because nobody cares what I look like. Like, nobody cares what I look like right now when I'm talking, right? They care about what I'm saying. So in the end, Value Town slowly evolved into more of an audio podcast, and learned a lot along the way from friends at Angry Chicken, and people along the way that were doing audio from the get-go. But yeah, in the end, audio, just the audio format, and just the little little elements of the show, like the intro you guys have, right? That's like very much an audio podcast thing, and not a video thing. And there's a structure to podcasts too. I don't think people understand and appreciate. They just kind of just talk. They just do talk show, basically. And a lot of people like it because they're probably popular people. But in the end, the art of podcasts, I think, is something that I have a lot of respect for, especially when it's done right. And so like you guys definitely do it right. So it's really, really cool.
Well, that's very high
Yeah,
accords coming from you. We appreciate it. And I
yeah.
think what a big thing which I even catch a lot of the very popular podcasts I listen to don't really catch is just how
Mhm,
much easier it is to listen to a podcast than watch a podcast.
mhm.
Just like yes, there are a lot of good ones that it's nice to be able to see the video portion, but there's something about audio where just a lot of people just have so much time on their hands and there's only so much bandwidth to be able to consume content and the ability to
Mhm.
consume it while doing something else like driving your car or washing the dishes or something where you can't fully pay attention to a screen. I
Mhm.
think the podcasts just have a whole new medium that allow for more consumption of content.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's so funny because when we first got started, podcasting wasn't big at all. Like it might have been big in like the tech industry and some other industries, but in gaming, it wasn't big at all. And so it's been kind of fun to just watch people really realizing how big of a medium it is. And it kind of just boomed about 2 years ago. I feel like everybody and their mothers were doing podcasts, and that was like the thing to do. But now, I think it's settled a little bit. I think people still try to do podcasts, but the people who are really, really into it for the long run, I think have stuck around and, keep doing it. You guys have done over 200 episodes, like that's when you're really, really doing it and really doing the grind, like versus just people kind of flash in the pan doing it.
Yeah, and it's entered
Mm.
into the public consciousness a little bit more. I think we have to thank Joe Rogan for that.
Yeah, yeah.
As his podcast particularly has taken off, he's got like millions and millions of viewers, and it's kind of spawned the idea that a podcast as a form of like as your primary job can be something you can do. And you look at a lot of the really like big podcasts out there, Chapo Trap House and Reply All, and
Mhm.
all these shows where they have followings, they have conventions and get-togethers for
Yeah.
a podcast. I don't remember that even 10 years ago, and now it's definitely, like, a part of cultural consciousness, and we're
Mhm.
Yeah,
multitasking
my
more.
my favorite murder sells out theaters, just
Yeah.
gigantic auditoriums of
That's
people,
awesome.
and they're
Yeah.
just like it's like a comedy murder show. Like, where would you even come up with that idea except for
That's
an
right.
audio podcast? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and we have to give Serial a little bit of credit as well. The way that kind of Serial season 1, the way it punctured the public consciousness in a way that I don't think we had seen before, where people were staying at home instead of going to the movies and listening to a podcast. That's a thing that hadn't really happened before Serial season 1. I think that really galvanized the movement where people realized, "Hey, we can do this and audio is compelling."
So, looks like you got some after. So, you've been doing you did the podcast
Yeah.
thing for a while, but also kind of, I assume it was like in the middle of Value Town, you started doing like the streamer showdown.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Yeah.
that was a thing you've
Mhm.
been doing for quite a while now, and it seems to keep growing, branching into other games just outside of Hearthstone. But what about like so you've talked a little bit about this new venture, juked.gg. Why don't you
Mhm.
tell the listeners maybe who haven't had a chance to check it out a little bit more about Juke?
Yeah, sure. So Juked is a new esports venture that I started with Ben Goldhaber, Fish Sticks. People know him as Fish Sticks online. And the whole purpose of it is to create a product that makes discovering esports live events and VODs, as well as watching, um, a better experience. Right now, you guys can even attest when it comes to trying to find esports events and whether it's VOD or live, and just figuring out when the schedules are, or just finding out what results are, and even just to cover on this show, it's super hard. Like I remember in Value Town when I would be covering GM or covering any of the just any of the pro scene, right? It would take me like a good maybe hour or two to like go and like collect everything when it wasn't even much data that I was that I was even trying to find. And it was just incredible that I'd have to sift through Reddit, sift through Twitter, sift through the VODs on Twitch. And that was like the only way I could get the full picture of what was going on, in Hearthstone of all things, just Hearthstone. So this type of thing happens in every single gaming community. Like I think some are better than others. Obviously, like Overwatch has the OverwatchLeague.com, and League has their site as well. But there are many other games that literally have nothing, and it really takes like community members collecting things and then providing some resource on Reddit. Like survival guides and things like that. Or it's become habitual for people to even just follow a million Twitter channels or follow a million Twitch channels, and that's how they realize when things are going on live. So we wanted to build something where if you come to Juke, you will see the what's currently live 24/7. I mean, you right when you get to the site, you immediately see the live events, and they're playing. They're not like thumbnails or anything like that. They're actually playing, so you can actually see them, and as well as you'll get the calendar in esports in terms of just the schedule for every single event. I remember like a while back there was this time where we always wondered, back when StarCraft, it was more like a StarCraft 2 time period, but we were wondering, it's like, why do big events schedule events on top of each other? Like, why would they do that? Like, why wouldn't they just pick like an event or why wouldn't they pick a weekend that's kind of like their own so they can maximize viewership? And I think a lot of it has to do with just like there was no universal esport calendar for people to even see. And right now as esport fans, everybody struggles with that. Nobody knows when things are happening. And I've talked to so many people, like one-on-one interviews, and most people find their esport, like the entry point into it, like an esport weekend or whatnot, on Twitter. They just haphazardly just come across somebody retweeting it on their Twitter feeds. Or they follow like every single TO on Twitch, and that's how they use their follow, left bar on Twitch. It's like whatever like shows up there. Like, oh, okay, I guess there's an esport event. So anyways, Juke's there for for all the esports fans to find their favorite esports immediately. And we cover 22 games, so everything from League of Legends, of course, and CS:GO and Overwatch, down to Tekken, and obviously StarCraft Brood War and Rainbow Six, Rocket League. I mean, you name it, at least for the first 22. And people, since we launched yesterday, have even brought up mobile games. Like, you're totally missing the mobile games. You should need to add like Clash of Clans and all this stuff. So, Clash Royale. So there's a lot more games we want to add, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide a tool that people can use immediately and get a lot of use for it and save a lot of people's time.
It also seems like just a good way to kind of introduce people into other games. Like,
Yeah,
I'm looking on the front page here, and there's the Smite World Championship qualifiers going on right now, which, if you're into the kind of MOBA games, maybe you're not as familiar with Smite, you can jump into, like, if you're into League of Legends, maybe you could jump in and take a look at Smite. It seems like a pretty cool game as well. So I like that you don't have to navigate when you get there. It's just like, boom, right away you have some stuff you could be watching, and then if there's something specific you're looking for, you can navigate pretty easy to find what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things. Like, that's one of the big things we heard when people first saw our closed beta, is that, oh man, I haven't watched World of Warcraft Arena in a long time. And or it was like, I didn't even realize StarCraft 2 was on. It's like been a while since I watched a match. So yeah, I mean, it was like reintroducing a bunch of games that people used to watch, but are now like a little bit more focused on a single game, and kind of widening, just just the scope of what people are watching. And I think that's a huge value that I think Juke brings too, is that I feel like we're growing esports too. Like, there are a lot of views that are just left on the table because people just didn't even know they were happening. There are people that want to follow more than one game, but because it takes so much time to follow even one game, they just don't have time to go look for the same schedules and everything for multiple games. So yeah, I mean, that's it's great that you brought that up, because that is actually one of the big use cases for us as well, that we're trying to solve.
And I just think about my ritual before Coin Concede every week of finding tournaments that happened already and then are happening next week. Look up my saved tweets from the previous week where a tournament was going on. Go on Liquipedia, was anything going on there? Go to YouTube and type in Hearthstone tournaments and hope something comes up. It's go to the Twitter, like, besides the Twitter accounts that I know, like, look in Discord. It's just so messy. it's just so messy that you have to plan to spend time to look for what's going on. And then sometimes there's a tournament in a non-English speaking country, and you just look back, it's like, oh, they gave out $100,000 and we had no idea. So it's
Exactly.
just getting all this together. I mean, it's accessibility makes sense. If you want to watch a football game, you go to your TV and you flip the channels and that's it. Like, and it's probably on. It was probably a push notification to your phone in this day and age saying, "Hey,
Yep.
this game is going to be on this network at this time." And esports, it's like we're rooting through scraps of information to try and put it all together. Are you pulling from Twitch and from Mixer as well? Are you pulling from multiple different services?
Yeah, so right now, right this second, Twitch is the most supported out of all
Sure.
the platforms. And it's mostly because almost all the esports are on Twitch. I mean, there's only a few that are, I would say, on Mixer, and some that are doubled up on YouTube and Twitch. So the plan is to fully support both Mixer and YouTube, and just as much as we're supporting Twitch right now. And so that will be ramping up very, very soon as well. But it mostly has to do with just the supply of events on those platforms. Just haven't quite been enough right now. But yeah, to your point with the notifications, that's exactly what the kind of experience we're trying to provide. We have notifications too that we send to everybody. You can actually go through our calendar and click on the events and matches you want to remind yourself about. So it's kind of like a little bit of a TV guide DVR experience, a bit where you can go and choose the things that you want to, and then be reminded. We'll probably upgrade that to be even closer to that kind of experience in the near future, just to maybe give you a little bit of insight of what direction we might be heading. But yeah, the point is to make your life easier, and all those things that you did. That is like so normal. People don't even complain about it. They just live with it. That's the crazy part.
We're all just
Is
like,
that
this is how it is, I
yeah.
guess.
Yeah, seriously. And we complain about so many other things in this space, but we don't complain about how hard it is to find esports. And it's just been it's crazy that how people have really become just that's their habit. So their normal daily habit is to do this, and they don't even complain about it. So hopefully what we're hoping is at least Juke opens their eyes to this, and this will just be like God sent. This will be perfect for what you're looking for.
It sounds really great. And if I were an event organizer, what would I do to work with you to make sure my events are listed on your website?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's probably the most common thing asked in the last 24 hours. So right now, well, just to kind of let you know, our future plans are to allow folks to add their events, big or small, to our calendar, because we want to be the esport calendar, like for every single esport. And it's just a matter of us having the features to make sure that it's curated properly. Like, we don't want to give you just like this terrible experience with the calendar with that. There's all these like smaller local terms you don't want to see or anything like that. So right now we're still in the mode where we're still curating it. You can submit your event by going to our Discord, and there's like a submit an event channel, and you submit the information. We'll take it into consideration, and then we'll add it if we think it's we think it's something that a lot of people want to see, or at least some people want to see. But again, like once we feel like we're ready in terms of having filtering and just all the sorting type of tools where people can find segments very, very easily, and yet still have the default experience, which is people want to see all the top tier events. Then we're gonna open it up to everybody. Let everybody just submit their own.
Yeah, well, in your very early days, your beta launched yesterday, the day before, or something like that?
So open beta did. Closed beta we launched about 2 months ago, and we've had about 1,300 people in the closed beta, and that have been using the site. And as we've been iterating through it these last 2 months, I've been doing feedback interviews every single week with as many people, and we've been doing surveys and whatnot. So really, you got a chance to understand other people's esport experience, besides myself. Which has been very eye-opening, and I think it's awesome. It's awesome to actually get a chance to talk to people, especially that are casual or super hardcore, or they only care about one game. Just really trying to find commonality between them all. I think that's been the fun part about really designing the product.
Well, we're very excited to see where it goes, and it sounds like you've got a pretty exciting future roadmap. But I have a question. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of stuff. How do you
Yeah.
balance Juke.gg, Streamer Showdown, other stuff going on, your family time, gaming, and like maybe the idea of sleeping once in a while?
I get that question a lot, even from my co-founder. So yeah, I mean, time management is something that's really important to everybody. I think it's something to learn how to do very very well. But to answer your question, it's a juggling act. I live off my calendar. I mean, the calendar is my Google Calendar is like super important. I make sure it's organized beyond organization, like as good as it can possibly be. And I had notifications sent to me all the time. So I think that's the first thing, just have a calendar. But secondly, it's just about keeping yourself busy. Like keep it balanced. I definitely try to make sure I balance the family time in here as well. But Juke takes a lot of my time right now. Streamer Showdown's it's kind of running like an auto mode right now. We've been doing some Magic the Gathering arena versions. I know that's like I shouldn't say this on this this podcast, but
We
we've
talk
been
about
doing.
Magic
Oh,
plenty.
yeah.
Don't
Okay,
you?
okay.
Don't
Yeah,
you
Yeah,
we're-
worry.
NPG.
We were all arena players before Battlegrounds.
Oh, were you?
but,
Okay, awesome.
Like off and on, but
Off and on.
yeah,
Okay.
we definitely I mean, all three of the hosts now were ex Magic players. We all competed
Gotcha.
and were going after pro points for a while.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so we've been doing some of those regularly just because WotC had us do a full season, which was amazing. Like we never done a full season of Streamer Showdown in any edition. So we've gotten a chance to do that recently. Still would love to do a Hearthstone one. Obviously Streamer Showdown started in Hearthstone. So it'd be great obviously to do another one. Watch Toast win again if Toast is back to doing Hearthstone or not. but yeah, so I guess to answer your question, it's just about balancing and just, I probably only sleep about 5.5 to 6 hours a day. So that probably helps a little bit. I think most people probably sleep another hour or two more than me, but I just don't need it. Like even if I have time to sleep more than that, I don't. But yeah, overall, just try to maximize your time. Time is probably the most valuable thing in this world. So, figuring out how to use it to, or optimize it is super important.
Jeez. Like, I feel sleepier. Like, I feel more tired just listening to you talk about it. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because you have to, if you book everything, you can be more efficient, but also it doesn't leave a ton of wiggle room in your schedule. But as long as you are aware ahead of time, I think it's great advice of be your own administrative assistant. That if you need to make sure you do something tomorrow, tell yourself in the future to do it today. And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't procrastinate. Definitely do
Never.
everything you can today. And I mean, it's one of those things too. It's like once you've done it a lot and you've, sometimes you cut things too close. You just kind of know, right? You kind of know when things have margin, when they don't, and what things can be canceled and what things can't be canceled, and you kind of you organize your schedule accordingly. So obviously, super important things. You just can't, you definitely plan very carefully around. But in the end, it's like I enjoy all these things. Like I always talk to my like wife or my son. It's like I don't play as many games as I used to, but I enjoy doing Juked, or I enjoy creating the Streamer Showdown episodes back then almost as much or even more than actually doing just playing the games. And I'm not sure why that is. I mean, I think it might have to do with just like I don't know. You provide something to the masses. When you're creating say content, or you create like a show, or you're creating like juke.gg or whatnot, and that gives me a little bit more gratification and really fulfills my passion more so than doing something that it's a little bit more inward, right? Something more just for me, which is playing games. And I don't know, something that's maybe changed. Like I've changed a bit, like over the years, at least becoming an adult. I don't know what it is, but
Well,
something
I
like
don't know.
that, right?
Yeah, I think when you kind of find a passion, you just kind of go like you
Yeah.
keep going with it, and it becomes a bigger part of your life. And
Mhm.
but, I mean, kind of speaking to that, since you've basically done everything in the world of esports, you know all kinds of different types of content creation. Do you have any
Mhm.
suggestions for maybe people who haven't done it before, who are looking to maybe try it, or even people who have just started? I know personally, there's a lot of people that I've been listening to lately that kind of just got their start in it. What would you suggest to somebody who wants to start out or maybe just started?
Yeah. I think it just depends on what you're doing. I think first off, it depends what you're doing. Like if you ask me what if you're a streamer that's just starting versus like a podcaster starting, I mean, I think there are two very different answers, to that. Like with a streamer, I would say you just have to be good at whatever you're doing. Like if you need to be good at least in the game that you're playing or whatever it is. That's usually the best place to start because a lot of people on Twitch just don't want to watch somebody that's just not good at the game. People say, "Oh, you have a great personality." Like you're gonna have a better chance if you're good at the game and people are learning how to play the game through watching you. But when it comes to the podcast, I would say that your passion for whatever your podcast is about and the chemistry between you and your co-hosts are the most important thing. And if you can nail that down, which is kind of funny coming from me because I like there's a lot of my podcasts I just basically just had guests on all the time, right? But I definitely recognize when I did have co-hosts and I see other podcasts that have that have this cast that's recurring all the like it's co-hosts all the time. That the chemistry is the most important. That's what people really get addicted to. That's what they love your personality. They love the chemistry that you have, and that's how you build a following. You build a following when people want to listen to you and want to listen to the banter you guys have, or whatever you bring to the table in terms of the content you're making. And so, I think it's good to pay attention to it. It's good to work on it, watch yourself. There's nothing better than actually watching your content and really critiquing it, and then writing stuff down and actively working on it on the next time you do it, and then do the same thing, and you just keep rinsing and repeating until it gets to a really really good product. It's any product is like that. You just keep doing it, keep iterating on it until it gets to be something that's you don't even realize it until people start telling you it, but it ends up becoming something super high quality.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice, and definitely if you're planning on doing content creation like a podcast with other people, making sure you get along with those people, I think is like that's just a great start to a podcast. If you're just, you're already really good friends with somebody and you already enjoy talking to them about the subject you're going to be podcasting about it.
Yeah.
That's a great jumping off point there, and then you can kind of figure it out from there.
Yeah, it should be fun. If you're
Yes.
not having fun, that's your barometer for something's a bit wrong here. Like, because that's at least for me. When I start feeling like, okay, this is starting to become more arduous than it is, fun. And it's not like the first time it happens. Everybody has bad days, and that it's more like, okay, this month kind of sucked. Like why did it suck? And you got to ask your question that, or you got to ask yourself that. And, if it is because, something's not right chemistry wise, then, you should think about that and change it up if you need to.
Or if it changes from becoming a dip and turns into a flat line, that's how you know it's a little bit different. Because, like, if
Yeah.
it's corridor creeper, fine. But then if corridor creeper goes away and you stay the same, it might be something else, for an example. Well, I think that's
That's a good analogy.
yeah. Well, I can speak to the corridor creeper part personally because that was a bummer. But anyways, I think that's a good segue because I have a question. What games you been playing? What have you been playing,
Oh,
Chan, man?
well, I've been playing Battlegrounds, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
what would I be if I didn't play Hearthstone, right? So, yeah, Battlegrounds, man, it's been so fun. And we were talking even before the show about just the announcement at BlizzCon. And like the announcement video was not so great. I'll just be honest. I don't know if I've told the team that or not, but I felt like the preview video that they showed during the announcement was not indicative of the game at all. Like it was like too fast, or like the
It
speed
was
of the
super
entire video.
confusing.
Yeah,
I had
I
no
was
idea. So, as somebody who's never played an auto battler
yeah.
before Battlegrounds, I was like, I don't know what this is. And Hat's like, we have to go play the demo right now. I'm like, what? Okay, I guess. And then I played it and I was like, okay, yeah, we need to play the demo again. Like, what are
Yeah,
we doing?
yeah.
Let's get food and then go play again. It's like, yeah, I feel now that I've heard that from you, I feel bad
Mhm,
for the people who just only got to see the demo at BlizzCon or like
mhm.
got to see the preview at BlizzCon and didn't get to play the demo while there, because they're probably sitting there like, why is everybody excited about this Battlegrounds thing? It
Well,
was
how many times on social media have you seen the phrase, "This is more fun than I thought it would be"? Only literally everyone that plays the game mode that didn't go to BlizzCon.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. And I mean, it's a testament to the team. So when I first heard that there was going to be a TFT, and I kind of heard behind the scenes that there was going to be some kind of auto battler announced at BlizzCon, and I was kind of excited about that. I thought it was just going to be like a Blizzard All Stars type of thing, right? A separate standalone game. That's what I was expecting. So when they announced it during the Hearthstone announcement, I was like at the end of it after seeing that video and being confused. I was like, is that it? Is that the auto battler they were talking about? It took me a second to realize, oh, okay, that's it. So the fact that it's a game mode was kind of surprising to me, and I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed that it was just a game mode because I'm thinking Tavern Brawl, right? It's just like that's not what I was expecting, from this whole auto battler, at least initiative. And so, I was going into it like I was in line with a friend of mine to try it out for the first time, and I have to say the first time I played, I was like, oh, okay, like this is a lot different, than I I thought it was gonna be, and it's very different than the other auto battlers too. There's like a lot of things that I would have thought was fundamental to auto battlers that are actually not in battlegrounds, like interest, the economy and interest and items, and things like that. But it feels like Hearthstone. Like this auto battler actually feels like Hearthstone and plays like Hearthstone and sequences like Hearthstone, and that's actually really really cool. That's a thing that separates it from all the other auto battlers, and it's been a lot of fun. Like what do you guys think? Have you guys been having a blast playing it too?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
what rating are you at?
I'm only at like 5,300-ish now.
Wow.
Like,
Okay, that's
so
higher than me. Yeah.
on day one, I was top 25, and then everyone else figured out how to play. So now I'm like top 200, maybe. And it's definitely an evolving meta. But yeah, I mean, I agree with your points. The initial preview, and I had an inkling that something was coming, but you could be told Hearthstone Auto Battler and not have any idea what that means, and then see the video and still not have any idea what that means, and then go play it and be like, oh. Because when we think
Right.
about Auto Battler, Heroes of the Storm got put to bed last year, and you think, wow, they can repurpose that. They can take all these Blizzard characters and have it be like all the other Auto Battlers. Instead, they said, nope, we already have a mobile client because in a game you already have, and it feels very Hearthstone-y, but also it is 100% a new game in the client. It's not a new game mode,
Right.
because even though you know the cards, except the ones they made up, which are a bunch of them, it's like
Yeah.
it feels. It's got the vibe of Hearthstone, but then you play it, and the skills don't necessarily translate. You have to relearn how to play it, and I think that's great because it's got a lot of depth to it that's more than is initially obvious, and I really like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that of course, it has to do with the different cards and the different minions and what they do. But the cool thing is, like right from the get go, you choose how many heroes are there? Are there 30 heroes?
24.
24.
So it's
Yeah.
if each
Yeah,
player
it's-
of the 8 gets to look at the 3, they all look at 3 unique choices. So the game
Right.
composition is never the same. So there's always one
Yeah.
AFK and 7 other people that have to choose 3 heroes.
Yeah. So it's really cool just right off the bat. You kind of have to choose a direction, and hope. In some cases, you kind of have to hope that the right cards come about. But that's kind of part of the meta and part of choosing. Like which hero to go with too. But yeah, I mean the thing the thing about just the whole three of a kind thing, in auto battlers is it's very much a card thing. Like this is the kind of thing that people used to do on tabletops all the time, right? Like with this is a very natural setting. So having Hearthstone be cards and behave that way, it was very, very natural. And the fact that we have battle cries and death route, I mean, that's something that actually the other auto battlers don't have, and makes up for the fact that we don't have the dynamic of items and whatnot. So I think it's great. I mean, I think that it still needs a lot of infrastructure to it. Like the ladders. I mean, it's it's just a bunch of points now that everybody is. I feel like I don't think it's not a zero sum game, right? So
I don't
I feel
think
like
so.
yeah, I don't think it is. I feel like you lose. Well, I don't know. I guess sometimes I do lose more than a game, but
Well, it's right
It
now
feels like
everyone's
there's a lot
rank
of
is
people above me.
stabilizing, right? Because it's that
Yeah.
I've at the first day winning a game was about the same number of points, and
Yeah.
everyone started at 4,000. There were a bunch of people that had to drop down, and a bunch that had to rise up. But then more recently, there have been some games where I was against players with lower MMR where fourth place lost me points, and other games where fifth place has gained me
Yeah.
points. And so
Right.
it seems to be based on like an ELO formula. That needs
Yeah.
time and initial seeding data that's accurate to be stable, and we're definitely not there yet. I agree that it needs a little bit more, and the feature that I'm dying for them, well, two features. I need to see what my opponents have on their board,
Yeah.
and
That's huge.
we
Yeah.
need an 8-player lobby. We need those two things. Because the 8-player
Yep.
lobby is how you
8-player
do
lobby.
tournaments. Like, you have to have that.
Yeah, play tournaments as well as play with more friends. Like right now I can only play with one friend, and auto battlers are actually a game type I play a lot with my friends. Whether it's TBT or auto chess at the time. So, for sure I agree with that those need to be there. I would say I still think I don't know. What do you guys think about the damage? I still think the damage could be tweaked just a little bit. Sometimes I think
Uh,
it's
I
too
think there's a
much.
lot. I feel like there's a lot of things I would tweak about the game as it is
Mm.
currently. And
Yeah.
based on, I saw Mike Dene even say something in Dog's stream yesterday where Dog was like, I think Mama Bear's a little too strong, and I believe Mike Dene, I don't know if this isn't official or anything, but he's like, yeah, that's getting adjusted on Tuesday. So they already have adjustments in mind, and I've also
Yeah.
heard that they already have different kind of metas lined up. Like they already
Mm.
have updates in the wings. So I don't know how often those would come out, but I think this is just kind of, they're really just testing it out right now, like it's a kind of a closed beta type thing, and we'll see
Right.
if they make any changes on next Tuesday.
So Mama Bears, does that mean that those aren't going to be real cards then on ladder?
Probably
If they're going to
not.
be adjusting
A
them
lot of
based
those
on Battlegrounds,
A
right?
lot of those
Or
don't make sense as real cards because they're not intended to be persistent. They could theoretically work, but I
Mhm.
imagine they'll probably get to the point where they have a lot more battleground specific cards so they can fiddle the knobs. Because right now,
Yeah.
if you want to change Junk Bot, for example, and by for example I mean they need to change that card. The only option you have is change the tier or remove it. But with Mama Bear or with Goldrin the Great Wolf or whatever, you can actually change the numbers on the card because that card has no real world parallel. It's not like Murloc War Leader, been around since Classic. You can't
Right.
make Murloc War Leader a 4/4. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see more Battleground specific cards so they can specifically do that, in addition to the obvious tier swaps and adding things and removing things.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of smart people working on this. I'm sure they have some ideas. And there is a balance patch that Mike Dene has confirmed is coming on Tuesday. Like, it is happening. So I imagine that mechs
Right.
and beasts are going to get a touch. I agree with you on the damage. There are times where I'll be fighting against an opponent who has any other beast and a rat pack, like a 6/1 rat pack. And if you hit the rat pack and it pops, and that's your last minion, you just take 6 extra damage. And that, like, those tokens
Yeah.
shouldn't just hit you if you get the attack wrong. But
I
yeah.
Well,
don't
three
mind
extra
that.
three extra
Yeah.
damage, right? Because it's a
Well,
3-star, so if it pops,
But yeah,
then
something like that.
yeah.
yeah, but something like that. Not to
Yeah,
nitpick, sorry.
I actually I don't mind it so much where the minions star level does the damage and there's some of that RNG in there. I think that it would be nice if just the base level was just gone. Like when you're 6-star, you're 5-star. Just removing that from the calculations on it. I think I would be okay if that was just removed. It sounds a little arbitrary to be honest, but I think that's like the simplest way to kind of lower it just enough for at least my liking. Um, because I don't know, just having that baseline, it's like you're guaranteed to do 5 or 6 damage, no matter if you come close to tying and you still do 6 damage. Like it's I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me sometimes. Like in TFT, it's not like that too, right?
Does
TFT,
it
if
not
it
have
comes
the
down to
scaling
one
damage
guy,
every 10 rounds?
I mean, it scales, but it doesn't. It still doesn't get to the point where it's like 30% or 20 or 30% of the
Yeah.
damage that you're doing, or even more. Like in a lot of cases, more, right? Like if you're down just 1 star on the board and you're a 5-star guy, you're doing, that much more. So I would be okay if they just even did that, and just reduced it just a little bit because I think there are ways to swing. If you add the ability to see your opponent's board and,
Yeah.
you lower the damage just a little bit, you have that 1 extra turn or maybe 2 extra turns to actually do something about it. Like just ditch like half of your, maybe you can ditch half your guys, right? And completely do something, that changes. Like I'm waiting for silence to actually. I wonder if they'll ever introduce silence. That might be kind
It'd
of an
be
interesting thing.
It'd
it'd
have
be
to be
really
a hero power, I
interesting.
think, right? Or it could be like a spider bomb, death rattle sort of thing, like when this
Yeah.
death rattle silence a random enemy minion, something like that. There's so many
Yeah.
things they could do with it. And I forget who I was talking to recently about, like, why don't they have dragons? Because Descent of Dragons is coming out. But then they said, well, all the dragons are targeted battle cries. You can't really do that in Battlegrounds. You can't, like, have a crowd roaster and deal 7-0. You have nothing to target. So it's interesting how they're going to have to make this work. I do agree there are a lot of opportunities for tweaks, but I'm curious as to where they'll land because also we don't quite understand the meta yet. We're going to have a separate strategy
Yeah.
episode, but I will say playing yesterday versus playing today feels dramatically different as to what people are doing, and that early damage has started to really add up as people
Yeah.
have built better boards early on. I've been surprised that going the full tech strategy doesn't always work out when you start taking 12 damage on turn 6.
Yeah, I've gone Zerg before, just like smart crazy, just fill your board like turn 3, have 7 guys on the board, right, and just really try to smork them down. It's surprisingly effective. I've never won doing that, but I've done pretty, I've done top 4 easily doing that, like just over and over again. So it's a viable strategy, and I think that they could enhance it even more just by adding, maybe just a couple better 1-star minions. Like the 1-star minions, I feel like there are only maybe like 2 good ones, and the rest of them are just like meh. So it's I think they could maybe help the early game a little bit.
Yeah,
What do you think?
that's kind of was going to be my criticism, just from playing very briefly. Is it feels like the early game didn't matter enough, and now I guess probably when you get a little higher up than where I'm at, maybe it matters a bit more. But the early game didn't matter enough, and the late game ended too quickly. It
Right.
felt like you didn't have any opportunity to react when kind of what their boards are looking like towards the end of the game, where the zap starts mattering. You need to know when you're putting in your zaps, or
Yeah.
when you need to play it like tech a little differently. It's there's a lot going on. I'm really excited to just play more of it, is what I'm the
Yeah.
most excited to do.
I hope they don't adopt a strategy in terms of design with kind of rock paper scissor type of thing. Like I hope they don't go too much down the countering route, countering each other. I'd much prefer just having fireworks come from all kinds of different types of strategies and just seeing which one can actually, seeing who can actually pull off pull any of them the most optimally. And just having them, like Beast just going nuts with Death, like currently what they're doing, right? Like crazy Beast with Death Rattle, and just having that go against like some kind of mech strategy or whatever it is, and just watching like all the crazy death rattles happening and seeing who in the end comes, after all the smoke clears, who's standing versus, oh, this guy just beat me. He just has silence like across the board, or something like that, right? And that just wins. I hope they don't go down that route.
I think so what I've heard is that the Blizzard internal developers can't stop playing the game either. And a lot of
That's
what
good.
right,
That's
because
good.
passion drives good products.
Yeah.
And where I think Battlegrounds gets it so right, where auto battlers they get it, but it's more complicated, and Battlegrounds boils every single action down to, well, what do I get next? What happens next? Every single next unknown action is so exciting. It's like opening a booster pack or seeing what your top deck is, but with every action, and then the reroll button, like, what if it's in this pack? What if it's in that pack? What if they attack here? What if they attack there? What comes out of my pilot shredder? Every single move is what's in the box. It's just what's in the box the entire time you're playing, and that feeling of something good could be right around the corner, and when you get it, it's so satisfying. And when you freeze the board because your triple is going to happen, and then you're at 6 life, and you say, well, I hope I don't die this turn, and then you do, you say, well, I'm not sure if this is going to have any depth. I better play another game just to be sure.
That's right. That's right. I think they did a really good job with the trips too. Like the upgrade you get from the trips,
Yeah.
it's very different than the TFT. Like the TFT ones, you don't feel it that much. Like you just you can kind of visually see it, but you don't like it's not very obvious, like the upgrade that you get when you're watching Underlords or you're watching TFT.
Yeah.
But with Battlegrounds, you see the upgrade from 2-2 to 4-4, or just the being able to
And you
upgrade.
feel it too. Like
Yeah,
you
Oh yeah.
feel the
yeah,
difference in the minion, and then you also
yeah,
get the power spike from the card that you're getting
yeah, and there's
that's higher.
synergy
It
too.
it
Yeah, there's crazy
really you can
synergy.
really feel like getting how good getting a triple is. But I mean, I still think you can win without having to get like a bunch of triples throughout the game. It feels like you
It
can
could,
still have a strategy that doesn't require it. It obviously feels great, but I've won before with like only upgrading once over the course of a game. It just kind of depends on how it
yeah.
goes.
I mean, the extra card is nice too. I mean, the guaranteed 5-star, 6-star, whatever it is, that you get is quite nice too if you can hit the right cards. But yeah, I agree. The synergy. I mean, there's plenty of synergies without getting triples, but when you do get the triples, and depending on what it is, it can literally be built around. Like complete. You just you come. It's like your end game pretty much, and how you achieve like buffing of the rest of your guys or whatever it is, right?
Yeah,
So
or
yeah,
the magnetized annoyable triple
you're right.
security
Yeah.
rover. The security rover, we're
Yes.
making the 4/6
Totally
taunts
sucks.
so gross. Yeah, and they really
Yeah.
do a good job of visualizing it, because the biggest problem with auto battlers before is that watching them kind of isn't great.
Mhm.
If you're playing TFT and your opponent has a 3-star Yasuo, you don't really know until all of your board dies at once. And then you know. But then you have to mouse over like, oh, they have a 3-star Yasuo. But in Hearthstone
Yeah.
Battlegrounds, you look at the board and you say, oh, that's a mama bear. Well, this is gonna be rough. And you know it before the first minion has hit. It's right there. And you see the golden. It's the thing that Team 5 has dialed in so well, is having simplicity and all the information you need expressed quickly. And an auto battler needed this kind of streamlining. The only
Yeah.
thing that's really left to break the genre wide open, someone needs to figure out how to do this in 10 minutes or less. You need a 10-minute game, because 25 minutes is better than the 40 minutes you got before in
Well,
TFT or Underlords.
okay. Yeah. No question the timer there. I don't know why none of the auto battlers do this, but there should be a voluntary end turn. Like, I don't know why people
Yep.
don't do that. Like, that there's no reason for not having a voluntary end turn. So, I mean, you would save so many minutes. Crazy amount of minutes. Like that needs to be one of the things. Like, I feel like that needs to be one of the top things, even from a UI standpoint, UX standpoint, to add from a Blizzard standpoint. And I think it's pretty easy too. Like, just have the end turn just turn on, right? You don't have to have the timer go all. And then if everybody clicks end turn early, it just ends.
Yep. And it's once you
Yeah.
have 0 gold or you've clicked the freeze button, then have end turn
Yeah.
light up green and then be done. And that's it.
Yeah.
And then when everybody clicks it, you just save, because the timer at the end of the game can be like 100 seconds. That's
Yeah. It's
it's
insane.
you
It's
may
insane.
one person may need that, but you probably don't. And saving time, and again, 25 minutes for a full game,
Well,
still way better than the rest of the genre, but still also 25 minutes.
just take the first 5 turns. Like, how many minutes could you save every single game if you literally took 5 seconds each? Like, the first turn takes like 5 seconds, right? And they make you wait 30 seconds or whatever it is. And that's everybody. Nobody takes 30 seconds to do the first turn, okay? Like, nobody does. So, like, I think that you would, I mean, guaranteed you would save probably 5 minutes minimum, 5 minutes on every game if you allowed people to do it. Some people have to read it. I definitely have a friend who doesn't know Hearthstone very well, and he has to read every single card. So those are the people that probably need to use a lot of the timer. But most of the people playing right now are Hearthstone players, so they don't need to read the cards. They can
And
just
also after a while, eventually that
finish.
guy is going to learn the cards and he's
Right.
not going to take the
Right.
full time. So like you can have it there and not need to use it, or
Yeah.
just have it there and then people use it and it just saves time. I think
Yeah.
that's a definitely big positive I could see happening. Well, hopefully I can see happening.
Yeah, it's I imagine they've got a lot in the works, because we're talking about this game
Mhm.
mode of all things
Yep.
they could change. It's been out for 48 hours. So it's and
I
we
know.
In
I know.
closed beta
in-
to a very like albeit a lot of people we know, but still a very small minority of people have actually gotten to play it.
yeah.
Well, you know what's crazy is that, like, given how much we've talked about how fun it is, even just for 48 hours, I think the general consensus among streamers and pro players or just whoever it is that they don't think it's going to be long lived. Like they think it's just going to be short lived, and they're worried about how long it'll last. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. Like I hope they don't do what Riot just did with TFT, which just completely changed it. So like people that played it before have no idea what any of the units do anymore, or any of the items do. I hope they don't do anything like that ever. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's a valid question. Like, what do you guys think? Do you think it is going to have some legs, or do you think it's actually going to be short lived?
So I heard the host voice come back on.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's please. I hear that voice sometimes. I like it. It's a good voice. So the number of people that have said this is going to be short-lived and then have played it all day, it's kind of hard to say that there's not depth to it. Hearthstone has been said it was going to be short-lived. When it first came out, you remember, this is like a simpler version of Magic. It's not going to last. It's still around. We still got it. I don't know if they change 0 cards. Yeah, the game mode's not going to last forever. I don't think they're going to do that. And Team 5 is very good at incremental change, but I don't think our core gameplay is changing. This isn't going to be like Underlords or TFT or Gwent. Remember, Gwent is like a new client. Like they started over completely. I don't think this is going to end up like that. We don't know, but the feeling of playing this game is so incredibly addictive. I don't see a way that it just flames out and dies. I don't see a way that everyone stops feeling happy about the thing they're really happy about right now, all at the same time together. It just seems really unlikely.
They said the same thing about just the PvE stuff, right? The whole rogue stuff. And I mean, it did die down. It did die out after a while, right? Like as they kept doing the same thing over and over and over. It did take maybe like a year.
But Dalheist and Tombs of Terror have both been very popular. They figured out exactly how to do it, and I think Dalaran Heist was really the best iteration of that. It feels more like Slay the Spire almost, with all the treasures and all the different, and adding Bazaar Bob, who is now like a functional mainstay of Hearthstone. And solo content, it's against bots, and it's the same gameplay against the same bosses every time. And a lot of people still will I'm not sure what to do, I'm going to go jam solo content. That's not meant to be endlessly replayable, but it's meant to be pretty replayable. But ladder has been, outside of the change to the rank system, ladder's been the same since the day the game launched. It's still 10 gold for 3 wins. Still exactly the same. People still jam it quite a bit. So, I don't know. I'm not ready to write it off. And I kind of get where people are coming from, but I also feel like most of them haven't played it.
Well, I think some of the people that are talking about it, I think have played it for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. I think at the very least, I feel like it'll be the second most popular, mode. I mean, at the very least, it's going to pass up Arena. I mean, it's going to pass up Tavern Brawl. I mean,
and Wild.
Yeah, and was Wild even in contention? No offense, Wild players, but I mean, it's.
I would argue that Wild's more popular than Arena, but I might be following the wrong circles. I guess as long as you have Crip doing Arena, I guess it's somewhat popular. But now I bet Crip's gonna be doing a lot of Battlegrounds.
He's number one, or at least was for a while.
I would suspect that he's going to be doing a lot of Battlegrounds. I guess we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it died out, but I'm just happy to have something I'm extremely excited about, something that I had to look at what time we were starting the show and be a little upset that I couldn't queue up a game because it was like pre-shows in 10 minutes. And I was like, well, I probably could get an 8th place, but
don't shoot for 8th place.
No. I don't really want to get an 8th place right before the show.
And we're going to tell the listeners about our pact because I want Botticus to be publicly accountable. We made a rule after figuring out at BlizzCon, after we did the demo 8 times at BlizzCon, and we found out that a game takes 25 minutes because we use a stopwatch. And so Bott and I made a deal, no salty runbacks. Because you can...
I already broke the rule, though.
Okay, I'm calling you out. Because you can lose a game quickly in 15 minutes on your lunch break, and then have 15 minutes less, and then say, well, I'll just do another one. And then either you lose again and you're mad, or you win and you're late to get back for lunch. No salty runbacks. Don't do it. Very important.
That's what the game's built on. What do you mean?
Like, yeah, it's really good at that.
Live. That's how it lives, right?
But we have to have discipline. It's how we separate adults from the animals.
Discipline. Come on, man. People design games now to break discipline. So I mean,
That's why we must be strong. We must be strong.
yeah,
We must be resolute.
yeah.
And also,
Well,
we should talk about the other stuff that happened at BlizzCon.
Yes.
well, yeah. Now that we've taken up,
For sure.
you said you
Yeah.
you had a
I can save
limited
it
amount
a
of
little bit
time.
if you want. Yeah.
But we definitely still want to talk to you a bit about BlizzCon. So why
Yes.
don't we really quick jump into the news? I guess we'll do a quick bumper.
We'll do
get
the
into
bumper.
it.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
We didn't have the audio. We didn't hear the audio. Hopefully it's over. I saw the drums go with Hat's hand, but BlizzCon happened. We've been talking about Battlegrounds a lot this time, but more stuff than just Battlegrounds happened at BlizzCon. They announced actually so much stuff. Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, WoW Shadowlands. There was just a ton of hype over the event. ChanManV, you were there.
Yeah.
What stood out the most to you out of kind of opening ceremonies, would you say?
Oh, the animations. That wasn't even close. Those animations were. I mean, I can talk about like which specific one, but let's talk about the animations first.
Oh, the
because those
cinematics?
were
Yeah.
Yeah, cinematics. Yeah, sorry, cinematics. Those were amazing. I mean, the Diablo one was probably the best one I've ever seen them make. Like,
It might be the best
The-
gaming cinematic of all time.
Right.
Like it's
Exactly.
up there. It's in contention. It's so dark, so dark.
Yeah, I'm glad they went dark and they did the whole MA thing. But yeah, it was. I mean, my jaw was on the ground when I was watching that Diablo one, and then the follow up to it was obviously the Lich King one, which that blew our minds. Everybody was like, okay, what's next now, right? With Shadowlands, and then the Overwatch one. With it had a little bit of a new look, but it was so good too. So I think they just smashed it with the cinematics. I still wish they would make a movie or a TV series, but I think that first off, I think was amazing. In terms of like all the announcements, I think when I was there at opening ceremony, I was like super hyped about Diablo and super hyped about just Overwatch 2 or whatnot. But to be honest, like now that I've like tried everything out and know what everything is, Battlegrounds is the best thing, like for me, like right now. Overwatch 2
Well,
was
we kind of have to wait like probably 3 years before we actually get to
Yeah,
play
sure,
Diablo.
sure.
So
well, I mean, even just the Diablo that we played, like even there, demo wise, it didn't feel that different to be honest, like than Diablo 3 for me. Yeah, cool graphics or whatnot, but I've seen some isometric games that look better, that are coming out for that could be interesting. And then Overwatch 2, who knows what happens in this next year, but it felt the same. Like when I was playing the demo with the PvE stuff, it's cool that there's PvE and there's flying stuff now and whatnot, but in terms of just the character, the heroes themselves and just the play and the smoothness, it felt the same. So it's just kind of like, why is this Overwatch 2? So I'm hoping a complete balance change happens in Overwatch at some point, like in this next year. And then maybe with Diablo, something amazing as well happens in the next year or two. But for me, the most practical thing that actually is super fun and awesome is Battlegrounds. That's the best thing, that came out of it. So yeah, big difference between, I guess, being there and and what's the actuality. In actuality, what it seemed the most fun.
Yeah, Andrew from the Happy Hearthstone actually made the point of, okay, we announced Diablo 4, you can play it in 2 to 4 years. Okay, we announced Overwatch 2, you can play it at a time to be determined. Okay, we announced Battlegrounds, you can play it now and Tuesday. Like, it's the
Yeah.
turnaround is so fast, and yet we did the Diablo demo. We considered doing all the other demos, and then immediately went back to Battlegrounds. The line for BG as the weekend went on got longer. It took longer to get
Yeah.
through the line, including during the closing concert with Fitz and the Tantrums playing. It was still a 30-minute wait to play a game of Battlegrounds.
Wait. There was a music act?
There was
there were 3
Fitz and the Tantrums,
What?
Haywire,
Glitch Mob.
and Glitch Mob, yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't even realize
They
that.
didn't announce it until like
Yeah.
closing ceremony. So
Until 30 minutes
didn't
before it
really-
started, yeah.
yeah,
Okay. All right. Wow, I wonder
Yeah.
why they did that.
It
But
was
okay.
it was on the screen. We heard rumors that it was kind of last minute because one of their acts pulled out after the Blitzchung stuff happened. I don't know how
I
true
see.
that is, but that's a rumor I heard. But they got some big names. But then it is probably the only time in history that Fits in the Tantrums has been like their set closed down so we could watch the Overwatch World Cup. It's probably the only time in history that's ever happened to a band of that size. And the Overwatch World Cup was hype, and that was the last event of the
Oh
night.
yeah.
Really,
Oh
really
yeah, it
amazing to
was.
watch.
I mean, I was there for the Korea. I was in the arena for the Korea US one. That was
Insane.
amazing. It was amazing. I mean, that should have been the final, to be honest. But beating China, just winning for the US, I think was obviously huge. Korea just not making it and winning was history, but US, I think, winning was obviously extra special, being the US and all. But
But yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, just speaking of grand finals, were you able to be there for the Hearthstone grand finals?
I was
Were you?
running
Were
over
you?
there. So I ran over. I
Oh,
got
okay.
there basically when the confetti was falling and everything. So I caught the end of the speech, thankfully. But oh man, I mean that was probably, I mean, that was no question. That's not even probably. No question the most important thing that happened at BlizzCon, is VK Lion winning. So um oh gosh, I've been wanting a woman to win, one of these major championships for so long now. Just because of the impact it has on esports. I mean, Blizzard esports. I can't. So, guys, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, I can't think of like what other major champion. Like, we're talking about end of the year, just final world championship title has a woman won in esports that had men in it too.
I I think that this is probably the first major event like this.
Right?
I can't think of another one off the top of my head. I haven't always been to every esport. I know there was the CS:GO team, FE, that was all women. But
Yeah.
I don't think there's been a really high, like a champion of a major
Yeah, like an
esports
end of
events
the
like this,
year world
like
champion, right?
holding the
Like, I mean,
trophy, world champion. Yeah,
right. Like Scarlett's won IEM before, like
yeah.
in StarCraft 2, which was huge. It's a huge title. But like, because I hear everybody talking about VK Lion's win as just like a Blizzard championship or Hearthstone's first championship. But I'm like, I'm trying to recall any esport that's had a woman win. Maybe like the early days, like super early days. Maybe there's something that I just don't know of. But at least in modern day, I mean, she's the first, and that's so inspirational for so many people. Like and that's what we need. Like, we need that in Hearthstone. We need that in esports. I don't know, just seeing it. She said the speech was what needed to be said. Sometimes these moments, like, the the right words aren't said just because they're shy, or there's no opportunity to do that. So I think Frodan asked the right questions, and VK Lion, like, she had answers that you're hoping for if you're like just somebody that's rooting for this type of scenario, and to have it fully flourish. Like, you have to have this great speech too. And so super happy for BK Lion. I am super happy for just this happening, especially in Hearthstone, after we had such a bad thing happen in Hearthstone, having this kind of turnaround, at the end of BlizzCon. Yeah, and I want people to, like, you know treat it like it's a huge moment in history, because it should be treated that way, and it should be something that I think people mark, can always point to being a very, very important day in the growth of esports.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. Which, and I actually think there's a bunch of stories here as well. Obviously, VK Lion being the woman champion is a huge deal. Also, the first time I think Hearthstone has a mainland China champion. It's
Yep.
I think ever. Tiddler Celestial made it to the finals in Firebat's here, but
Yeah.
it's the first time that mainland China has actually really performed consistently. And RNG Leo made top four as well. Two of the four Chinese players were in
Yep.
the semis, and it's kind of
Yeah.
a big deal as well.
I mean, they had
Yeah,
to go through a lot tougher of a like their qualification was
The gold
much
series
tougher
is
than
insane because you have
yes.
to
Yeah.
earn the
Yes, that's
status
what
to
I was gonna
even
say.
get to the Masters qualifiers there.
Right.
And then in the gold Masters, you have to get enough points to get invited to the 6-person qualifier tournament. And then you have
Right.
to win that, which is like double elimination. It's pretty nuts. So they really had to be on their game. And the current Grandmasters and the rest of the world didn't really have to be on their game as much, except for qualifying. You know, you have to make it through the season, you have to have a decent record and all that. But once you're qualified, you don't really have to play as much. And I think it probably bore out in the difference in both the lineups and the execution.
Well, they had to do all that work to get to season 1, right? They did all this work to get to season 1, and then they're in Grandmasters, they're competing, and if they do well, they go to BlizzCon. Whereas the two mainland China players had to work, like ChanManV said, they had to work their way through a huge field. They just had to put in an unbelievable amount of work. And honestly, I think it really showed. Her lineup wasn't like anybody else's. It really felt like it had a really good read on the field, and it played out as such. I mean, she crushed it through
She
that top 8.
10-2'd it.
Absolutely just destroyed that top 8. And I just think it was an amazing story. It was a extremely well deserved win, just on top of her winning. And then Had and I were sitting in the crowd as she won. I felt like shivers as I was also walking to the Battlegrounds line. But at the same, it was just like, wow, like it was an amazing moment to be a part of. I'm really glad that I was able to be in the audience when that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, just kind of putting producer hat on or whatever. That's a dream moment. You know what I mean? Like when you can actually touch people, when you actually have something happen, on your stage and on esports to actually touch people. And this is Hearthstone. How many times have we actually had something like this happen? I mean, maybe the Firebat win, the very very first one. I definitely had some feels, and that had a lot to do with just me knowing Firebat's story and knowing him and rooting for him and everything. But outside of that, there's nothing even close, I feel like, to what happened, on Saturday. So yeah, it's just good. It's just great to be able to have that type of moment happen. And like you said, totally deserved. She crushed. I mean, she 10-2'd it. Like her record in the whole competition was 10-2. And there was no doubt about it. There's no way you would not hear anything from any of the pros saying that, oh, she was lucky or whatever. It was not about luck. She played. I don't even know if anybody I heard anybody say she misplayed anything. Like she played extremely well too, and like you said, had a great read on the meta, and absolutely deserved it. So that's awesome. I I mean, I wish there was a way to tell like what kind of impact this had. Like if there's some kind of stat that more I don't know, more women are entering these tournaments and trying to get qualify for the GM or whatever it is. That'd be great to eventually hear. But I just hope this story doesn't go away. And it's
Yeah.
not crazy ephemeral like these just normal esports stories normally are.
I mean, Hearthstone, it seemed lately like it's had a little bit of a longer memory, that some things don't really just go away. And there are a lot of players in the qualifiers with the name Free
Yeah.
Hong Kong, so it's definitely a little bit more of a memory. But I agree. I think Lion probably sent a message with her speech more than anything. If we needed a role model, we got one. And I remember Cora was really excited at the event
Yes.
after the win. Like she's faced
man.
some quite a bit of adversity too, and I remember her tweeting, "Well, after all this adversity, Lion's the world champion, and I make the game. So let's go."
Yeah, that's all. I mean, Chorus tried, extremely hard as well too to, from a competitive standpoint. We definitely had our share, right? I mean, oh god, I'm having a total brain. Who made it really far even a year ago? Or
Biza.
Biza, yeah, Biza's come very very close. So we were on the brink of it. It was going to happen, no question. I mean, I'll be honest. Like this surprised me. I wasn't expecting, I wasn't expecting the champion to come from the China region for whatever reason, and just because there's just been so little coverage of it on this side of the world. And then VK Lion, like I didn't know much about her, until going at least recent, maybe the last couple weeks, So it was all pretty surprising, and to be honest, kind of snuck up on me. I think a lot of people were rooting for like Casey, and especially going to the semis, and Bloodyface. Like I know Bloodyface quite well. And Bloodyface is like probably I think he was like one of my last guests on BattleTown too. So that's a pretty hard lineup she went through too. She definitely beat some giants. Maybe not a lot of people know these people from popularity standpoint, but the pro players know these players, and they are like the best players, probably right this second.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
congratulations to BK Lion. She did an amazing job.
Bloodyface came off he top 4 2 HETs, I think, made the finals of one of them, and then was in the top 8 of Conquest Worlds in April, and then again back in the finals. A consistent performer from the start. And Casey is, also, we're talking about world-class best players, and Lion dominated. Her Highlander Hunter play in particular was really, really impressive to watch. She just dumpstered people with it.
Yeah, I mean that was a pretty example of just a great read, right? That deck just crushed people. Like it wasn't even close when she played that deck. So, yeah, that was a fantastic bring to the tournament.
Yeah, and I was just impressed overall by the feel. I'm still not sure I'm sold on or shall we say, not Worlds, Globals. I'm still not sold on Globals because the tournament has a different name because it's not the World Championship, it's the Global Finals. Very different.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on the structure there, and I don't know about the future of GM as it currently stands. I know it needs some tweaking, but it's interesting that a player from outside the system had the best success inside the system, and it just shows that rewarding players for playing is a good thing for your game, and you want to do that for your game.
Yeah, I'm kind of split on that, to be honest. I like the combination of it. I think it's one of the biggest problems I've had with pro Hearthstone has just been the inability to really point to a player and say like you're a pro player, because there's no designation. There was no designation in the past before GM existed, and I felt like it was super important to have the ability to do that because sponsors don't know who pro Hearthstone players are, right? Like, what do I sponsor? Like I sponsor just any Joe Schmo that can win it, like that's kind of like what they're going for in this Hearthstone space before. Like anybody can win. You can be the Hearthstone World Championship or World Champion for this year. And I think that like that storyline sounds cool or not, but there's a very small chance that actually happens. Like that actually works out to be this fairy tale ending for people. And so I think the negatives really were greater for, at least for me, than the positives that comes with having a structure like that. So I really liked having the GM just designation. And having people try to play into it. I don't know if I love how you qualify for it, and just that whole system and how people fall out of it and come into it. Like I feel like that needs to be developed like a lot. That needs to be changed a ton. But I do just generally like to have that kind of pro tour or whatever you want to call it, pro league or whatever it is, and continuing with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. You have more points. I know we only have him for a limited time, and before he goes, I definitely want to get his thoughts real quick on Descent of Dragons, which surprisingly the new set is probably the least interesting part of Hearthstone over the last week.
Usually the only
Kinda
thing,
crazy,
right, we talk about.
Yeah, it's like the major thing, and like I'm excited about it for sure, but it's like third on my list of things I'm excited about from the last week.
Yeah. To be honest, I haven't gotten a chance to look like really closely at the cards. I definitely did a skim over the other night, and man, there's some powerful cards, like extremely powerful cards. I do like the invoke thing. I think it kind of like reminds me of Cthulhu, just the old gods type of build up, some giant here, special card. I don't love like the one that they showed during the opening ceremony, the one where you get 4/0 mana.
Oh, the Galakrond.
Minions.
Yeah,
the Galakrond.
If you can upgrade that 4 times, you're gonna win that game, I think.
Yeah,
it's drawing 4 free cards is pretty good. You need to do a lot of invoking though. It's a lot of invoking.
It is, but 0 mana cards are like the source of all evil in my eyes.
Yeah, not just in your eyes. I mean, we have one in standard currently. It's called Mogu Flesh Aper, and it's not working out super well.
Right. Yeah, so I wish they would get away just get away from that. I don't like. I just that never leads to something good, in terms of people being happy about those cards. But I saw some of the other invoke cards that they're pretty interesting. I think, and it'll be. I'm very curious to see, like, each of the classes running it, and seeing if it ends up just being something that even new players can play. That's the nice thing about Cthulhu. There was like a pretty strong mechanic and card that was cheap that people could really enjoy. And feel like that powerful element of Hearthstone that normally you have to have a lot of cards and spend a lot of money to have. And so I'm curious to see if that there will be a very similar experience in terms of these new cards with Invoke.
Yeah, and I like a lot, and that they're giving away the 5 Galacrons for free, and it's not one Galacron, because in the past, I think before they wrote the class identity article, it would have been a 5 class Galacron that did the same thing for all 5, but
Right.
instead they made 5 unique Galacrons for each class, and you get all of them,
Mhm.
and it's for all the League of Evil classes. So you get it for Priest, Rogue, Shaman, Warlock, and Warrior. They all have their own Galacrons. The neutral Invoke cards work on all of them, and then there are also class Invoke cards. And we'll go into details as to what Invoke means. It's kind of confusing and wasn't super well explained. But it's, and these are extras. They're the 135 normal cards in the set. Every class has 2 legendaries and the Galacrons on top of that. These are an extra bonus, and I agree. I think this will be a nice new player experience.
Mm-hmm. I just hope it doesn't become a meta. It's actually good in meta, because that's when it becomes bad. Whenever you create these type of easily accessible cards and mechanics, and then it just literally dominates the meta in all levels, that's when it's like, oh, you guys screwed up. You guys completely messed up. They did a good job with Cthulhu though, so I'm hoping they did. This remains in that same bucket or power level.
Yeah, accessible but kind of slow is definitely a good spot to target.
That's right.
And, dragons are not known for being fast. Like, you can, maybe if we go back to Dragon Warrior with 2-mana War Axe and Alex draws as champion and all that, but the way they make cards is definitely a little bit different now, so I don't think we're necessarily in danger of them making another 2-mana 3/3 with charge. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, out of the they've probably showed 40 cards or something like that, 30 cards. I mean, it's like half of those are dragons. Like, they're almost all dragons. So when they say this is a dragon expansion, they mean like all the cards are dragons, not just the majority or whatever tribe is is the one dragon thing. There's a lot of dragons in this set. That's going to be kind of cool to see.
Kibler's happy. Kibler's very happy.
Yeah, Kibler's definitely very, very happy.
All right, well, we don't want to keep you too much longer. It's because you have already stayed a little bit over. It turns out that Battlegrounds runs an extra half hour. That'll happen sometime.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
But thank you so much for coming on. Are there any shout-outs you want to give while you're here?
No, I just definitely a big shout out to you guys for inviting me to the show, and I'm happy to finally come on the show and hang out with you guys. So it's definitely been a treat to do that. And just everybody, if you enjoy esports, come to juke.gg, juked.gg, and hopefully you can find everything you're looking for in terms of esports. And let me know too. Just send feedback to me at ChanManV on Twitter if there's anything that you think we could do to improve it. But that's it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and you always have a spot welcome here. If you've got a burning thing on your mind you want to talk about, feel free to come on and share it with us and with the world.
All right, man. Cool.
All right. Thanks. Have a great night, ChanMan.
All right. See ya.
Yeah. See you later. All right. Hey, we did it.
Hey,
it happened.
We did it.
Let's see.
I hope he doesn't. I hope he didn't feel rushed off. I really didn't want to do that, but I also wanted to be respectful of his time. So
if you want to type in the chat, because I can't minimize the window.
Type in
the Discord chat.
Type in Discord chat. What am I typing?
If you want to thank him, say like, "Hey, we did."
Okay.
We're just doing a little behind the scenes things for the listeners now. No big deal. I have to recrop your window because
I should probably mute while I'm typing because my...
Oh, whatever. This is all going to get edited out anyways. Hey, listeners. How's it going? thanks for being here. We're just gonna do a little editing stuff here because when person leaves the show, in Discord it messes up all the cameras. You know how it is. That's almost Botticus. I should have probably done these before, but I didn't. So here we are. All right. That's you. Almost got it. That's your face. Do my face. I know this is fascinating, listeners. And raw audio. Boy, this is going to be some great raw audio. Really great. Patrons, if you can't hear right now, I'm adjusting my camera in OBS. I know it is fascinating. So you have to manually type each number because this program is kind of silly sometimes. That's me.
Man, you're so much farther away than the last time we talked.
Right? I liked it when we were near, in the same car. That was cool.
Yeah,
Except for the
that was
4 or
cool.
5 exchange.
Except for, I was gonna say except for the part where we saw all the flames coming from the
Fire
hills.
was also kind of a bummer. There were a couple
the
bummers.
actual car time, other than the company, was not that great. Now that we think about it,
It's
lots of traffic and lots of fire.
Yeah.
Not great things, and
So-
lots of not sleeping.
We should probably explain all 3 of those things because we're being kind of vague. So, Blizzcon, obviously, Bott and I hung out. I actually stayed at his place for 2 nights, and then the 3rd night we got a hotel because we're not stupid.
Well, we were we were not thinking straight. Well, I was not thinking straight, and then had thought straight for one night, and that was a good night because we stayed 5 minutes from the venue.
Yeah,
Which
it's-
thankfully they had a room because, oh man, that was way better. We should not do the commute thing again. That was not a good
No.
idea.
because
I learned my lesson.
see, listeners, for those of you anywhere near California, Anaheim is south of LA, and where Bott lives is north of LA. And the event's on a Friday, which means you have to drive through LA with Friday morning traffic. And if you don't know LA traffic, it was 3 hours. It was a 3-hour drive. It took us 3 hours to get there. And there was also a fire about 6 miles away from Bottica's house on Thursday night, and it was hot and visible, and there was
Ashy.
ash on the car when we left in the
I was-
morning. Everything was
I
fine.
was like,
Everything's
"Oh,
fine.
There's not it didn't look as bad as the one we had about a year ago, but it was still there, and I didn't think there was a lot of ash when I first walked outside, and then my whole car was just covered in it. I was like, all right, let's go to BlizzCon at 7 in the morning because we need to be there by 10, and the hour and 40-minute drive on Friday morning is more like a 3-hour drive. So that was joyous.
Yeah. It was everything else about BlizzCon was good. Except for the
Yes.
fact where when we had to leave on Saturday and couldn't play more Battlegrounds until Tuesday, that part was terrible. That was terrible. And I don't know what it is about this game mode. We're not going to do Life and Ladder because we haven't played any ladder since Battlegrounds came out. We played in the line for Battlegrounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I played Quest Druid in line for Battlegrounds, got to rank 3, and I would not be surprised if I am still rank 3 when the month ends.
Yeah. I'm also rank 3 right now. I've been playing a good bit of Mogu Cultist Quest Warlock, and I think that deck is actually decent. I think it's a decent deck. Also rank 3.
It's not completely embarrassing to bring on ladder. That's high praise when Shaman is a deck that you can still play on ladder and doesn't look like is getting any nerfs anytime soon, as far as we can tell.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not. Pretty sure it's not. And we actually have a news item about that. But yeah, so there's something about this game mode, and we have a news item here, but we want to make sure we're super clear. We're going to have a separate Battlegrounds episode, and it's all we've been playing since we were able to play it. And if you don't have it yet, we'll have an episode up for you on Tuesday when the open beta comes out. Even if you think it doesn't look fun, just give it a try. Play it for the tutorial and 2 games. And if you do not want to play more after that second game, first, I'll be surprised, and second, by all means, ladder's still there. But boy, is this is something new, and it's this feeling that I get in the back of my head that I haven't had in a while, in a long, long time since Hearthstone first came out. Of do I have time for a BG? Time for a BG? Can I fit in a quick BG? Like it's before I leave for work, I wake up drinking my coffee. Can I do a BG? Right before the podcast, do a BG. It's a thing, just a constant thing.
At work, I was like, well, I can order my food on my phone so that it's ready when I get there to pick it up, or I can go there and order it and queue up a BG and play it while I'm waiting for my food to be ready.
It's a
and
thing.
Then I get home and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna have a quick snack and then start up my stream and play BG until like an hour before I go to sleep, and then get ready for bed and then lie in bed and play another BG before going to bed. And it's just, oh man, I can't wait to talk about it on Sunday when I have even more information, because I'm still feel like after I think I'm only at like 7 or 8 first places and 19 or so top 8s and a bunch of not top 8 or sorry, top 4s. And after still quite a few not top 4s, I'm still learning stuff, and I still, oh man, some of the things you can do. We just if we talk about it too much now, we'll just keep talking about it, and then
Okay.
it'll be Monday, and then we'll be like, oh well, we did a podcast that lasted until Monday.
So, but I've got good news, Botticus. If we do what's in the show notes, then we can go play more BGs.
Okay, so let's do that.
Let's do what's in the show notes.
We talked about the majority of this these new news highlights here. We'll just kind of skip down to the last couple items here. There is a patch coming on Monday because a lot of stuff is broken right now. If you get tilted by emotes, now is not a good time to play ladder because you cannot squelch your opponent. So I would not recommend playing ladder because if you try to squelch your opponent on PC, it will not happen. It will not work at all. You cannot do it.
If you try and squelch on iOS, your client will crash. Hearthstone will close. It will squelch yourself. You will get squelched because you will no longer be in the game. And people are aware of this. And unfortunately, every so often you will get a person who ropes you every turn and emotes on cooldown. And I wish it wasn't that. And I know that none of our listeners are that way. But this, I on the one hand, I want to say this shouldn't matter as much as it does, but on the other hand, it really matters. And I'm not saying this is why I've been avoiding ladder, but every time I've thought about it, I'll get in a quick ladder game. If I just got a constant emoter, I could mute the client, but it would, I don't know, just feels like I'd rather just do a BG, which I would. And the patch will also definitely lessen the difficulty of running BG on mobile, because as of right now, it's pretty touch and go. The client's not optimized for it, and there are way more optimizations coming next week, along with a BG balance patch.
I've had actually pretty decent luck playing on mobile, but I literally got a brand new phone 2 days before I went to BlizzCon, so my experience probably does not reflect the majority of people's experience. So if you're playing on a phone probably like a year or so older, then you might be having issues, and hopefully all of this gets fixed on Monday. And they've been looking to do this fix for a little while, so I'm wondering actually if all of this infrastructure was just in there for BGs that was causing a lot of the issues, because this mobile thing's been happening for a while. And I'll just be happy if they fix stuff.
Yeah, it's maybe, but they're working really hard on it. They've had a lot of crazy long days, I'm sure, because a lot of stuff was fixed server side already, like Overkill wasn't working. The Sathravar, the new card that was released from the expansion that everybody got for free, could target your opponent's minions, and it wasn't supposed to do that. And that card's like mildly had an impact in the meta, but not enough to really change a lot of stuff. It's very good in Holy Wrath Paladin, because you play a 0 mana Shirvala, and then you Sathravar it, and then you do a lot of damage. Yeah, Bott, you hadn't thought about that, huh?
I'm a fan of I was trying to think of ways to break it before, and I was like, okay, so if we like draw a 1-mana version, or we draw a 1-mana Malagos with what's his name? That
Geppetto.
draws one with Geppetto Joy Buzz, then you can make multiple Malagoses, and that seems really good. And now you just said Shrivala, and my head just kind of went.
Yeah, you gain 14 life and then have another Shrivala next turn to use for your Holy Wrath combo if you're against aggro.
Well, you have 3 Shrivalas that turn, right? Because you play the Shrivala, you make a copy and play with the Shrivala.
Yeah, you have
one
3.
goes into your hand that you also can play,
and then
one
still
goes
in
into
your
deck, which is like, and you can still play 2 bankers, so you can still do the double combo while also going off early with it to stabilize against aggro, and that seems good.
Yeah, it seems like gain 21. That's what it seems like. Seems like you gain 21 life. And also attack with 3 7/5s. And also don't impact your combo. Yeah, it seems okay. And we should note a couple logistical things about the stuff we talked about. Descent of Dragons comes out on December 10th. $50 for 60 packs, not 50. And $80 for 100 packs, not 80. Both come with the Golden Legendary. Both come with the Deathwing Portrait. Both give BG access, if you don't have it already.
Yes, I did not have the pre-order when I did my first BG, but since I was at BlizzCon, I got to do a BG, and I only got 2 portraits, and I was like, oh. And then I got the pre-order, and I was like 3 portraits, and that was much better.
Yeah, it's kind of gameplay impacting. And the way the Battlegrounds monetization works right now, if you have 10 packs purchased in any way of the newest expansion, which is Descent of Dragons, then you get to unlock stats, which are not currently live. If you have 20 packs, then you get to pick between 3 heroes at the start of the game instead of 2, which is enormous for gameplay. And if you have 30 packs, then you get the cute little emotes. The cute little BG emotes, which are adorable and also don't have any sound associated with them, which is really important. And you can get these packs through anything.
It makes it so much more palatable.
That they have no sound.
Those emotes are so much more palatable.
Yep.
Yeah.
But also, this will include, after the new set comes out, gold packs, quest packs, giveaway packs. Doesn't matter how you get the packs, but if you want to send Dragons packs now, the only way to get them is to do the pre-order. And the only way to get in BG right now is to do the pre-order, or to do, to go to BlizzCon, which, if you went, you already know. And if you didn't, then you'll have to get the pre-order, or wait until Tuesday. So, just so you're aware. And, there is a Battlegrounds tournament that they announced, the Battlegrounds Brawl. Bott, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so they have 4 teams of mostly streamers and kind of personalities, and it's kind of like a choose your champion style, so you can actually win rewards packs for picking a team that you want to win this thing. So let's see, I just want to bring up the teams. I have already chosen my team, so I will need to figure out how to see the other 4 teams, but my choice was pretty easy. I picked Hafu, Dog, and then 2 other people. I mean, Trump and RDU, who are no slouches by far, but I mean, I really don't know that you can go wrong picking Dog and Hafu, especially since Dog, last time I checked, was still top 5. And yeah, that team seems kind of crazy good. But the other teams, one is called the Rabbit Rangers, composed of Vins, Regis Kilbin, Disguised Toast, and X Cocoa Bear or Cocoa Bars.
X Choco Bars. She's a
Choco Bars?
variety streamer, good in TFT. I believe her and Toast are dating. I'm not 100% sure, but
I thought didn't they just live in the same house? They have like a streamer house, right?
yes, yeah, they have a streamer house
I know
together.
that. Okay. And then the Doombringers, which is Zalay, Firebat, Asmodai, and Surrender. Definitely another team I think you could easily consider picking for this. And then the Rust Buckets of Tice, Kibler, Amaz, and Kalento. not all of these teams definitely viable options, but personally, I'm going to choose the team that has Dog on it, and especially Hafu too, because she's kind of insane at games. She's very good at games, and was also super good at. She was super good at TFT, right? She was crushing TFT for a while. I
Yeah, she
imagine
was number
she's
1
doing
on
really well.
pre-release. She's number 9 right now on the leaderboards currently, and Dog is number 6. By the
Yeah, I
way,
think they're probably pretty good at this new game mode.
Yeah.
If I had to wager.
number 1, Tides of Time, and number 2, Chalky. What year is it? What year is it? Oh, and also Crip is number 4. And Cora is number 13. Cora's so good. She smashed me in our first game of Battlegrounds, and then I got the finals because I was sitting next to her. No big deal. She fed me advice.
Yeah,
I'm not too proud to admit.
I got. Oh, I thought you were talking like when it came out in beta, but
No,
yes.
no, it's at BlizzCon. She was sitting next to
Yeah,
me,
at
and then
BlizzCon.
helped me, and then smashed me. So Cora
Yes.
giveth and Cora taketh away. I chose the Doombringers because I thought 3 Grandmasters and Asmodai seems pretty good. As a Lay Firebat, Surrender, and Asmodai. That seemed like a good team to me. I do agree that Hafu, Dog, Trump, and RDU also seems like an excellent team. And Hafu and Dog are
Yeah.
both top 10 right now.
And RDU's 15th on EU, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How about that?
So maybe maybe picking the team that has everybody at the top of the leaderboards is.
Yeah.
I mean that's the what I would go with, but I definitely think that your team is legit. Amaz is actually 22nd right now on.
He's very good.
Oh, and Regis Kilbin is in 17th.
He's also very good. He
That's a
smashed me
very-
earlier today.
yes.
Very
Some
interestingly
big
enough.
names on these leaderboards.
Oh yeah, Europe number 3, Savitz, and number 5, Stanudachi. So what I love about this game mode, besides everything, is that so many people, so many lapsed Hearthstone players, people from the game's history, and people that have now moved on to other games are all coming back for this and are all really good at it. And if anyone tells you there's too much variance in this game, and you look at the leaderboards, and these names are at the top of it, no, there isn't. No, there is not. And Tides of Time in particular has an MMR over 7,000. 7552, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. See, to get his MMR, you take...
How is that even possible? It just means he never gets out of top 3 probably.
Yep.
Like the amount of evolution you have to be able to go through and like pre-planning to know what the meta is going to be like when all of the top people are playing, that's insane. And he's probably also like, because he probably has to have really long queue times, so even if he's queuing against people like in the 6500s, like his win rate just has to be astronomical. That's so crazy.
Yeah, 7552. He's 400 over this number.
My mind.
He's 400 over the second place person, which is Chalky, who is both really, really good at games and makes the game, and has been playing for months before. So yeah, Tide of Time, good at cards. Who would have guessed? So yeah, and I think that's all we have for Battlegrounds right now. Oh, we know when the open beta comes out next week, no MMR reset. You keep your current rank. I don't know if they're going to change the rating system, but as of right now, there's no reset because they want people to stratify so you get better games, so that people are playing against each other, people with equal skill. Because I will say, yesterday, when it started at 4,000, that was not the case. It reminded me a lot of the first demos at BlizzCon, where there were some people that were definitely just getting their bearings and some people that definitely were sharks in the water.
Yeah, I had that feeling too. And I imagine it's also, since it's also still going to just be in beta, I would imagine that they might consider a reset when it gets physically actually released out of beta.
Or maybe something when
That
an
would make
expansion comes out or something, like they can do it every so often, like how they reset Legend Ladder. But they also have to figure out a way to not do a full reset, but probably just like maybe they scale people back. Maybe they round to the nearest 1,000. I don't know. Something like that. I could see round down to the nearest 1,000 or nearest 500 and just even things out. But yeah, and the MMR as it currently stands, I think it's just an ELO calculation. I do not believe that there's a cap on the upper or lower. So and I didn't know it went to 7,000 either, BR. But Tides of Time figured it out. He was the first one over 7K, and now his 7,500 is insane. Really, really bonkers.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So, last couple items we have here. Alec actually had an interview with PC Gamer and said this quote regarding Shaman. So, Alex says, I think with Shaman currently, there are some gameplay patterns that we aren't the most happy with. I think that when you have an 8-mana minion that you evolved from a Mogu Flesh Shaper on turn 4, that's not a healthy gameplay pattern. I think that this is going to be a card going into Descent of Dragons that we're going to keep an eye on. Heard that sentence before. Feels to me like we're not getting a balance patch before the next set comes out. What do you think, Hat?
Not before. Going into Descent of Dragons means they're going to wait for the set. I want to actually look this up. I want to look up something real quick. I'm going to edit all this typing out.
I mean, keep in mind, we also have to keep in mind that when Descent of Dragons comes out, Evolve goes away, and then we're pretty much just left with Mutate, which is still gross, and also Mogu Flesh Shaper, still gross without the Mutate. It's just sometimes you hold it for the Mutate, but also just very good. That card's
just a
very
0 mana
powerful.
3/4 with
Please.
Rush. So I'm
Please
sure they'll
adjust
do
it.
something. The
Pretty
nerfs, the nerfs to Luna's Pocket Galaxy and Conjurer's Calling were August 26th, and Saviors of Uldum came out the first week of August. Right? It was like August 10th-ish or something like that. They nerfed it within about 3 weeks, and I imagine we'll get a pretty similar timeline. That if Shaman continues to be oppressive or unpleasant, or that play pattern continues to be pervasive, I imagine that we will not be waiting more than 30 days for a nerf. But at this point, with the volume of patches they have put out already, if they wanted to slip in a balance patch, they would have done it. Because they're taking the client and like shaking it out and putting new stuff in there already. They could have easily done a balance patch with all these other patches if they wanted to, but I don't think they want to. Now, they did say also in the interview...
Well, also, like, I don't know about really thinking too deeply about balance patches when you have, a little thing called BlizzCon where you're announcing about 1 million games and everything's super busy. I know around that time, the Blizzard's kind of like, hey, you probably don't want to ask for interviews around this time because we're all super swamped busy, and then people are probably taking time off and BlizzCon and all just kind of all kinds of craziness going on. So... while I would love to see a balance patch, I don't really expect one until we get underway with the new set.
Yeah, and they did mention in another interview from friend of the show Andrew Brown on behalf of HS Replay that I definitely didn't paste in the show notes just now while we were talking. That and these interviews, the interview with Alec and the interview with Iksar and Melissa Corning was at BlizzCon, because you're right, they don't have time beforehand. They had press interviews during the day. And Iksar and Melissa Corning, who's the producer of live updates, of live content, both of them basically agreed on when we do an event like this again in the future, it's not going to last as long. It's going to be a little shorter. And I think that I'm glad they said that. I think that I'm glad it's not going to last as long. Because if this was over on Monday, okay. Fine, it was a month, whatever. But it's not over. So, BGs? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would be way more upset about this if I didn't have BGs, right? Like, if we didn't have BGs to play, then I would probably be saying something along the lines of they need to change this now, because while I said a week or two ago that it wasn't too early or it wasn't too late, like they weren't taking too long, now it's feeling like a long time, but I'm gonna give them a pass because I have Battlegrounds and because BlizzCon was amazing.
Yep.
All right, and the last little item we have here is that the hero portraits are currently discounted and will be discounted a little bit up until December 10th. So if you've always been looking at potentially getting one of these hero portraits of Alaria, Magni, or Medivh, they're a little bit cheaper. US, they used to be $10, and now they're $7. So if you've always wanted to grab these, you can definitely pick it up. And a little bit of news about the Tyrande portrait. That's going to be given away for free later this year. So if you've been waiting to get that one, I know a lot of people have been asking for it and really want to get this portrait back. You'll have your option to get it later this year. So yeah, and that's pretty much it for the news. Went for a long time, but we still got some tournaments, and we want to talk more about cards and Decksplanations, so why don't we get on with it?
It's the grand tournament!
This section's going to be fast because we already talked about the most important tournament. It's GM, not Worlds, GM Globals. The global finals. But the world is a globe. Unless you asked a flat earther. But anyways. So Globals happened. Lion won. VK Lion. The VK, by the way, we learned this from Gayuan6 on Twitter, who's from China, reporting from China. VK stands for Victory Key. That is the name of the team. VK Lion, with 3 O's, over Bloodyface. Leo, RNG Leo, and Casey formed the top 4. Amazing, amazing finals. The tournament as a whole had some big spectator moments. Maybe the most, I don't know if I'm going to say exciting, but the most interesting one was poor Fino versus Bloodyface. And I don't know how it's always this number, but Bloodyface was at 29. And Fino drew a lot of cards in the Combo Priest Mirror and buffed up his injured Blade Master and hit for exactly 28 and passed the turn and then lost.
29 for sure.
29 for sure. 29 for sure.
And then later in the day, Bloodyface had an almost lethal with the Pyromancer in play as Combo Priest, but was off by 1 after doing the math and chose not to Fino himself. And did make it to the finals. So, yeah, pretty amazing. Control Warrior represented well. Highlander Hunter was a next level choice. Only Lion brought it. Did really, really well all tournament. Totally dumpstered people. Was fun to watch. I mean, 8 Combo Priest and then Highlander Hunter. It's of course going to do well. Druid did well. Highlander
Against Druid, right?
yeah.
It crushes Druid most of the time.
And Control Warrior, which was brought by half the field. It's actually just a really good choice. So yeah, she also did not ban Shaman at all and did not really struggle. She did just fine against Shaman. Now, what should you watch? You should watch the finals. You should watch, it's 3 games, 3-0 in favor of VK Lion. You should go watch the finals. Go watch it. Lion plays really well. You will see the execution was really excellent in all 3 games. You don't need to choose. Just watch the whole thing. And I went back to the VODs and watched a bunch of them. And they were cool, but like a lot of the matches kind of went the way you thought they might in the semifinals. I'm not going to post a highlight of Malygos Druid beating Control Warrior because when the only card that matters is Hakar and then Casey doesn't draw Hakar, then of course Lion's going to kill him. Deal 70 damage in 1 turn. That's what happened. If you go back and watch the Quest Druid Mirror, the one with Cenarius is probably going to beat the one with Malygos, and that's what happened. But the finals were kind of magical. The whole thing just kind of was a moment, and you could feel the tension and excitement and suspense building as it went on, and especially that last game with the kill command. Oh, yeah. When the kill command came up on the tracking, it's just like, this is it. This is it. This is happening. And it was really great. She played super well. There were a couple turns. Bott, I think you pointed out this one to me when we were there. The turn 1 coin Crystal Merchant, turn 2 Quest Pass against Shaman. Love that play.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was actually surprised more people didn't know about this play because when I was watching Quest Druid day 1 with Dog made this play and he said, "Yeah, this is just the same. This is just the same thing, except I get a 1/4 on turn 1 instead of turn 2, and I can control the board a lot more." So If you're playing against a deck that's trying to do things early and you need a bit of board control, you definitely want to coin out the Crystal Merchant on turn 1 and then play Quest on turn 2, and then you get the card and the 1/4 that can attack into things and give you a little bit of board presence.
Yeah, it doesn't let you hit the the Surger on 5, but I don't think that's actually vital in most of the matchups. It's really just about making sure that you survive, and the best way to do that is to trade a bunch and draw extra cards. And Crystal Merchant's good at both of those things. So, really impressive play. But we're going to keep moving right along. Tespa, we're in playoffs right now. You have elimination brackets this weekend, semis the weekend after, and the finals on December 14th. So when it narrows down, we will start covering it. But we did finish group play already. As far as Arlington Qualifiers, we've got a pretty stable meta. Combo Priest, Tempo Rogue, and Token Shaman. It is dominant in its performance. It is 10% of the meta, has over 400 appearances, 5 wins to its name. No other lineup has more than 1 this week. Next closest is Combo Priest, Tempo Rogue, and Quest Shaman. And that one it doesn't perform as well. It's not as good. So if you're looking for this week, Combo Priest, Tempo Rogue, Token Shaman is the most popular lineup. You should be ready for it, and you should probably be playing it. You don't have to be playing it, but you should have a reason to not play it. Now, as far as cool and underrated lineups, Triple Quest, Quest Druid, Quest Shaman, Quest Paladin. 10 entries, won a qualifier, did very well. Same with Highlander, Hunter, Holy Wrath, Paladin, Tempo Rogue. Whereas we haven't seen as much success from Res Priest, Quest Shaman, and Control Warrior, which is just under 50% win rate. Same with Tempo Rogue, Quest Shaman, Control Warrior. Quest Shaman and Control Warrior together don't seem to necessarily be the key right now. And the most popular lineup is pretty aggressive and is able to adapt with good play. So I'd really just practice the matchups with Combo Priest, Tempo Rogue, and Token Shaman against the control decks that you expect to see and learn how to outlast the pressure. Token Shaman in particular can be very tricky to meter your resources in a way where it matters. Now, big thanks to Wicked Good for these numbers always. Ladder, there's not a lot to talk about. Shaman's good. Yeah, so we'll have more news there when there is more news, but not much has changed. It's the beginning of the month. People are playing decks that are a little bit more aggressive. In particular, I do think that that Aggro Shaman, the Token Shaman, is much likely to be more popular than Quest, but that'll change as the month goes on. So, coming soon, the Hearthstone Global Games are starting at November 15th. We've also got the Hearthstone Battlegrounds Brawl coming up, and Dreamhawk, what is that? DreamHack is hosting Hearthstone again. Bemi made the announcement today that House Rivalries is collaborating with DreamHack to bring an event to Anaheim, California. His announcement's on Twitter. We don't have a lot of details yet, but we'll have him on the show at some point in the next month to talk about it. And maybe we'll get some in-person Hearthstone again. Very exciting. Anaheim, not too far from you, Botticus. Approximately 90 minutes to 3 hours from my personal experience. So
is it a Battlegrounds? Is it going to be a Battlegrounds event?
I don't know. Maybe. You might have to attack yourself. You might have to do your own attacks. It's BYOA. Bring your own attacks. Yeah. But we also have some exciting dragons coming. Shall we?
So we've already mentioned it a million times, talking about Battlegrounds on Monday. Otherwise this would be a 4-hour podcast. So today, we're going to go over some of the new cards that were revealed from Descent of Dragons, because even though we're in love with Battlegrounds, we also are pretty excited. I think both of us are relatively excited about this new set. It's want to see kind of where ladder goes. Hopefully there can be some shakeups, and we have some interesting mechanics cards coming out that were revealed, and I guess we'll kind of just get into the big one, which is Galakrond. Now this was not explained super well to everybody. It's kind of just like, oh, hey, new hero card. 5 classes are going to get it, which are all part of the League of Evil. But I think Hat does a really good job of explaining kind of how this card functions and how the cards that are accompanying with the Galakron cards function. So, Hat, why don't you give us a rundown of Galakron and how it functions in terms of its actual abilities?
Let me get a graphic real quick because I totally forgot to do something. There's also an article about Galakron that I'm going to put in the show notes here because it's confusing. This is confusing. So let's see. Okay. Wow, these graphics are terrible. So hold on. I should have done this before, but you know. Just naming this folder Galakron, why not? I didn't realize that 3 forms in the different classes all have the same name. They're all the Nightmare, then the Apocalypse, then Galakron's ends. Let's see. All right, we're gonna put a little Galakron on the screen.
I like how the one of the explanations is not accurate necessarily to how the card functions, which makes me kind of tickles me a little bit.
Which thing?
It just says, so casting Seal Fate will not only deal 3 damage to an undamaged minion, but it doesn't just have to be a minion, everyone.
What's his character?
You can deal, well, on the description, it's or like on the post it says minion, but you could also do it to characters. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
it's not
face.
Backstab.
Go face.
You can go face for 3.
So Galakron, it's a hero card. Death Knight, whatever you want to call it. It's a hero card. It has a battle cry, and these are functionally different for each class. Each class gets their own. The battle cry is different. The hero power is different. 5 armor. It starts with a battle cry. For example, the rogue one. Draw 1 card. It costs 0 mana. That's the battle cry. 7 mana. The mana doesn't change. But it also says invoke twice to upgrade. There are cards that say invoke on them. And invoke does 2 things. 1, it ticks up an upgrade counter. Right? You invoke once. Think of it as 1 out of 4. You invoke a second time. 2 out of 4. That's a break point. When you invoke twice, Galakron upgrades. And this can be for any Galakron. It's the same basic idea for all of them. The battle cry doubles. So the rogue one becomes, for example, draw 2 cards. They cost 0. Then when you invoke twice more, to 4 of 4, it becomes doubles again. It becomes draw 4 cards, they cost 0, and you get a 5/2 claw weapon. All of them get the 5/2 claw at the high end. All the Galakrons that we know go 1, then 2, then 4 of an effect. But in addition, and this is the part that's really important, the invoke cards, in addition to ticking up that upgrade counter, they trigger your Galakron's hero power. So whatever your Galakron does, the rogue one, for example, add a random lackey to your hand. When you play Seal Fate, which is a 3-mana spell that says deal 3 damage to an undamaged character and invoke Galakron, think of it as deal 3 damage to an undamaged character, add a lackey to my hand. Makes that card very different than if invoke is just the upgrade. And I think they didn't do a great job of explaining this part, because every person I've talked to, even when we did the mini Blizzlet bonus podcast, it didn't come across to the other podcast hosts that were on the show. So I don't think the average player is going to get this until they play with the cards. So your invoke cards trigger the hero power and do the upgrade counter. The Warlock ones in particular that we're going to talk about are really interesting because the Warlock hero power is make 2/1/1 imps. So a card that says give your minions +1 attack after invoking Galakron. You invoke Galakron, you make 2/1/1 imps, then you give them +1 attack. So it's 2 2/1s plus buffing the rest of your minions. That's a lot better than just giving your minions +1 attack, do nothing else. The invoke cards, as they stand generally, aren't super strong from what we've seen so far, but they're also invoke payoff cards. For example, Warlock, Veiled Worshipper. It's a 4 mana 5/4. Battlecry, if you've invoked twice, draw 3 cards. Seems pretty good. So, invoking, you have to have a Galakron in your deck. You have to have these invoke cards. And if you're able to invoke 4 times in the game and then play Galakron, you probably win. But also be aware that invoking just does something when you do it. Very important.
And a couple quick notes. If you play an invoke card and you do not have a Galakron in your deck, if it did not start in your deck, you do not get that. You do not get the power thing, which is somewhat important. And if you steal a Galakron, which you can steal Galakrons, but you did not start with one in your deck, an invoke card also does nothing. So just kind of interesting to note. Obviously, don't play invoke cards if you don't have a Galakron starting in your deck. That's just, you should know that. And it also, I'm guessing that if for some reason a Galakron gets burned, like you overdraw it or something, invoking should still give you the hero power, I would assume. So just kind of notes about Galakron. It's somewhat complicated, but I think once you actually play with it and you keep in mind what the hero powers do, it becomes a lot more obvious that the cards are not quite as big of a downside as they look on their face. For instance, especially there is a 3 mana 1/1 that says invoke Galakron and then gets +1/+0 for each minion you have in Warlock. When you play it, you're going to get 2 1/1 imps, and then you would get a 3/1. So every time you play that card, it's going to be at least a 3/1, sometimes a little better. That also generates you 2 1/1s. So just all things to consider when you're evaluating invoke cards. And then the other kind of big mechanic that they kind of revealed are called side quests. So I was always wondering about if and when they would do something like this. These are basically smaller quests that should be completable basically without really having to alter your deck a whole lot. They can be played alongside regular quests. They look kind of like secrets. And you have up to 5 slots on your hero tree. These quests do not start in your opening hand, so you do not automatically draw it when you're looking at your opening hand. And I think they're just kind of cool. I don't know how powerful they are. I think one of them actually looks pretty promising, which is Learn Draconic, which is a 1 mana. I believe they're all going to be 1 mana. You can have multiple in your deck. So it's a 1 mana spell, side quest, spend 8 mana crystals on spells. And once you have completed that, your reward is to summon a 6/6 dragon. So if you do a little bit of pre-planning or a little bit later in the game, if you have some spells in hand, you can just kind of add a 6/6 to whatever you're doing, assuming you can play a deck that is mostly comprised of spells, which I think is interesting. It's definitely, I'm interested to see the rest of the side quests, but I'm interested for sure, 100% interested in seeing how side quests function.
So what do you think of the set so far? We've only seen a handful of cards. I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of 20-ish, probably, which is more than I expected up front. And they just kept dropping cards onto the spoiler page of the website, and they've got a full reveal scheduled already that we also have linked in the show notes. They're going from November 21st. They're announcing a lot of cards every day. What do you think of what you've seen so far?
I think it's cool that there's a lot of dragons. So far the spell or the cards that stick out to me are all these ones that we'll talk about soon that have breath in their name. What I kind of realized is all of these cards that say breath seem like fairly pushed cards. So, I mean, we might as well just talk about them right now. The most obvious one to most people that looks pushed is the Druid card called Breath of Dreams. It is a 2 mana Druid spell. It is a rare that says, draw a card. If you're holding a dragon, gain an empty mana crystal. So if you are holding a dragon, this is Wild Growth. on turn 2 with the card draw right away. You don't have to wait till you already have full mana crystals. So,
Geez, this is
if
just crazy. This is just a crazy card,
yes,
right?
but what I have seen, people are saying this is just wild growth with the card draw. No, it is not. You have to have a dragon in hand for it to be wild growth. That is a huge, huge cost. Because if it was the other way around, if it said gain an empty mana crystal, then draw a card if you have a dragon in your hand, that is a way different card. It is insanely better because it's just a better. Well, it's not just a better wild growth because you're not guaranteed to have the dragon part. But I don't know. This dragon mechanic's pretty interesting. The other two I just want to go over real quick. Corrosive Breath is the hunter one, which is deal 3 damage to a minion. If you're holding a dragon, it also hits the enemy hero. This card used to cost 5 mana without the dragon requirement. Very, very strong card if it costs 2 mana. Very, very, very strong card. Candle Breath, which is draw 3 cards, costs 3 less when you're holding a dragon. This is not as obviously like drawing 3 cards, very, very powerful, especially if it costs 3 mana. The main use I see for this is if you can play 2 Twilight Drakes in a rogue deck and you get to play this card, you get to go Dagger into Candle Breath into Twilight Drake. Seems like a very, very strong curve. And then the last one is Sand Breath, which is the Paladin one, which is 1 mana, give a minion +1/+2, and then you give it Divine Shield if you're holding a dragon. I believe this is a sleeper card. Watch out for this one. 1 mana, +1/+2, not the most impressive, but very powerful effect if you can trade up without losing health on your minion. Like it's if you're able to be an aggressor, I think this card is very secretly very good, or maybe not so secretly very good. So
I don't even want to
So
trade
one
with this
mana
card.
is-
I want my opponent to have to
1 mana
trade
is
and have
super
to
cheap.
attack twice.
Yeah, I mean it's all situational, right?
Yeah,
But
it'd be
yes.
great in BG. Really, really good in BG. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Well, holding a dragon is hard. You have to hold on to a amalgam, and that card is like
the best minion.
that card is in play. I
Yeah.
mean, you just want to put that one in play. You don't really want it to be in your hand, but
Yeah. Or other
yeah.
people
So
are
watch
buying
out for the breath cards. I think we'll probably get one for every class, and they look like lightning breath. Holy cow! I almost missed one of the best ones as well. 3 mana, deal 4 damage to a minion. If you're holding a dragon, also deal damage to its side ones. So it's just a better lightning storm without overload if you have a dragon in hand. So really all I'm saying is if we can realistically put like 2 copies of 3 different dragons in our decks, these cards are going to be really strong and you're going to see them in a lot of decks.
Yeah, Lightning Breath is really good.
Even if it's just 2 minions, it's great. And if you ever get the full blowout of 3 minions dealing 4 damage for 3 mana, you're just, man. And you're attacking. Man, well, even I guess you don't even have to be attacking. Like it's a great defensive card too. It can be aggressive for swinging the board, and it can be defensive for early removal. That just seems like a very good card as long as we can put dragons in our deck, and we're not putting them in our deck to make breath good. We're putting them in our deck because the dragons are good, and it just makes these cards better because the dragons are good.
Yep, and we need as many like primordial drakes as we can find, and we already have a couple good dragons. Dragon Moss Scorcher, Crowd Roaster are all very reasonable cards as well. So
Twilight Drake's always just been a pretty playable
fine.
card if you're not spending cards early. If you're not like spending an overspending on cards early.
Yeah, we'll talk about the meta implications at the end. I'm not sure Twilight Drake is the answer right now. I feel like you would lose to Combo Priest the next turn if you played a Twilight Drake, but we'll see. Now, the card that I want to talk about it's a card called SI7 Agent, except they made it for Hunter. So, Dwarven Sharpshooter, 1 mana, 1/3. Your hero power can target minions. So, you play it on turn 3, and it's a 3 mana, 1/3 deal 2. Or you play it on turn 1, and then you use it on turn 2. And hit something, like an Evil Totem. Or, yeah, it's 1 mana 1/3s. We played Dire Mole, which was a 1 mana 1/3 with no text. And that card was good. And this card has text. In Hunter. And that hero power is pretty nice. It's pretty nice for early game board control. And if you've ever been a Hunter player with an awkward draw, and then you just play this in turn 1, your draw isn't so awkward anymore. You just shoot it. You just shoot it, and you're good. So
yeah, they keep pushing this effect because I think in general the effect is not powerful not enough on an understated minion, but on a perfectly well statted minion like Dwarven Sharpshooter, it seems like probably going to be a great place for it, and I think you'll see a lot of Dwarven Sharpshooters for sure, unless you're, freaking Zul'jin, and then
yes,
doesn't matter.
If you are Zul'jin, this card is less relevant. Also, if you're Zul'jin, we probably shouldn't be talking about 1-drop specifically. But yeah.
Yeah, 1-drop minions that are not spells.
Yeah.
Probably.
But what about Malygos? Did you see Malygos podcast? Did you see that? So Malygos is a silly looking card. Because it does... It's a 5-mana 2/8 mage dragon. That says... Battlecry, if you're holding a dragon, discover an upgraded mage spell. I'm going to put these on the screen. These spells are ridiculous.
You know what? Yeah, you know what's better than a rogue spell that's 3 mana, draw 3 cards? A upgraded Arcane Intellect, which is 3 mana, draw 4 cards. 4.
Yep.
4.
So,
that's
for audio
4.
listeners, we'll run through them quickly. So all of these are Malygos' version of these spells. Arcane Explosion, 2 mana, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. Fireball, 4 mana, deal 8 damage. Flame Strike, deals 7 mana, deal 8 damage to all enemy minions. Malygos Frostbolt is a Frostbolt that costs 0 mana. Arcane Intellect, draw 4 cards. Malygos Arcane Missiles, 1 mana, deal 8. That's 8 damage, right? 8 damage split evenly among all enemies. Malygos Frost Nova costs 1. Malygos Polymorph costs 1. And Malygos Tome of Intellect is 1 mana, add 3 random mage spells to your hand. It's a Kabbalist Tome. These are all bonkers. Some are better than others. And now you can have a 1 mana polymorph in your mage deck for whenever you want it. Like if you discover it. And chances are
your singleton mage deck, you can have a polymorph and then you can get another one if you need it, probably. Yeah. It is discover, so there is a bit of randomness to it.
Well, it's 1/3 chance to see any spell. Yeah.
It feels relatively like you're gonna be able to get something that you need most of the time. It's like removal spells, card advantage spells, kind of split pretty evenly, and then you have like cheap versus bigger, like smaller effects for cheap or bigger effects for the same amount of mana that you'd spend for those bigger effects. So it seems like it could be a pretty versatile card. I'm not super excited about paying 5 mana for a 2/8.
Yeah, that part is not great. You're playing for the spell, and the spells are all good, but you have to get the one you want. And Mage needs a little bit of help, so I think this is a push in the right direction for Mage, because this fits perfectly into what a Highlander Mage wants to do, for example. Right? If you play this into Reno, into something, you're probably okay. And 7 mana, deal 8 to all minions. That kills Sea Giants, and that's pretty good. Because sometimes you'd have Flame Strike, and they would have, things bigger than 8 butt, and now you don't care, so.
But also sometimes they have Murlocs. Make 1/1 Murlocs, and then they're like, haha.
They can't all be winners, Botticus. They can't all be winners.
There was one more card that I wanted to talk about, and I know you're not super high on this, but I do think that the Rogue Galakron scares me a little bit, because drawing cards that cost 0 is really strong. So it's going to very largely depend on the invoke mechanic, if we can play invoke cards. But if you get, I know 7 mana is a lot, but if you're drawing 4 cards and they cost 0, then it may be slow, but that catches you up real quick, because if you draw a couple as long as you're not drawing backstabs and preparations, it's a lot of value. And you get the 5/2 claw. Yeah, that card seems scary to me. But it's like I said, it's largely going to depend on if you can play invoke cards that are meaningful. And so far, the ones I've seen for Rogue have not felt meaningful enough. I don't want to pay 3 mana for something that I can get almost for 0 mana. Like, Backstab's a card that's been a staple of Rogue decks, and I don't want to pay 3 mana to deal 1 more damage and get a lackey. That's not a deal I'm looking for.
No.
So, we'll see.
The effect is really good. The thing, and we'll close out with this, my feeling on the set is that I am a little concerned. Not because the set is too good. I think the set will have a lot of appeal as well, and I think it will be exciting. But, historically, dragon decks involve using all of your mana to play an on-curve minion each turn. And you generate value with dragons. A lot of Discover, which is worse now, because Discover doesn't get the class card bonus anymore. A lot of add another dragon to your hand. There are a lot of mediocre dragons in Standard. Now, we obviously have a ton more dragons to be revealed, and there's going to be a lot to choose from, but larger pools usually mean a lower average card quality, because if you're picking from a bigger pool, it's just more variance. You might get an outlier, but you might also just get an average card, and you don't necessarily want another average dragon that you have to use all your mana to play. And the meta that we're in right now, even without the wild cards, is very fast and not super concerned about a single large minion a turn. Combo Priest, Vendetta Rogue, any of the Shaman decks, which even if they're going away, Highlander Hunter with Freezing Trap, there are a lot of decks that do not care about your dragon. So, the Galakron strategy, it's fairly Cthulhu. It takes a minute, you play cards on curve, your strategy is kind of pretty defined by underrate cards with a big overrate payoff at the end, if you can survive that long. And it's very mid-rangey. If the dragons are interactive, cool. If they have taunt or some effect that clears the board, and they aren't just... Like, one of the better ones right now is Dragonmaw Scorcher. It's a 5-mana 3/6 that deals 1 to all minions. If that's the best we got, dragons aren't keeping up. Straight up are not going to be able to keep up. And while this may be contextual, a set based around mid-range minions hoping that they fight on board and the game goes long enough that matters. We had a set like that. It's called Rostakon's Rumble. And it didn't do a lot in Standard. And I hope this is better, and they've definitely pushed some cards here that we've seen. The breaths are all quite strong. I think every single one that I've seen is quite good. But like the Invoke cards...
They're all quite good if we can play dragons.
Yeah.
If we can't play dragons, they look way less impressive. But I really hope that they're not coming out with a set with a ton of dragons, that they're not going to at least print a few that we want to be playing.
Well,
we actively want to be playing.
I think we'll actively be wanting to play with them, but you've played a good amount of Dragon Priest in your time. Outside of Dustbreaker, if you play a Drakop against a Zoo deck, they say, okay, nice 5/6, hit you in the face, and you lose. So it's...
Well, I mean, you just play Potion of Madness on turn 1, turn 2,
right.
and then you play Dustbreaker on 4, and then the Drakop's fine because all their stuff is dead.
Because you had all the crazy anti-aggro cards. So we haven't seen the support yet. Just dragons historically have been a mid-range mechanic that is good in value metas and poor in tempo metas. And Hearthstone is a tempo game. So I hope I'm wrong. I don't know. We obviously only have a tiny portion of the set yet. I think 35 total cards yet. But, like, I look at this Galakron. That payoff is crazy. But I have been down the Dirtle Rogue path before. And I have been hopeful about that deck since Shadowcaster was printed in Whispers of the Old Gods. And it has not been good one time. N'Zoth Rogue is a specific tournament strategy that you can maybe think about bringing. And that's maybe the best it's ever done. And since then, there have been littered shells of Dirtle Rogue decks that have tried and failed for years and years and years. If my opponent is playing Invoke cards, I want Sap and Wagglepick in my deck. and I want them to pick up their card and put it back in their hand and then take a bunch of face damage, and they're going to die. There needs to be some kind of defensive mechanism here, or a way in which the dragons can be converted into board control, as opposed to just hoping my minion lives so I can trade with it, because that hasn't worked for a while. And so far what we've seen is good removal spells, like good spells. The breaths are all good spells. Some of them are removal. And minions that my opponent will play, and then I will speed past them. So, a lot of cards left. I am excited about the content of the set so far, about the idea of it. I hope it is better than it looks right now in terms of impact on the meta that we have. And I hope that it's not too good. But I don't think it'll be too good. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about it either. But I will say if Galakron Rogue functions at all like King Togwaggle in Rogue, if it's like a fairly similar thing where it's more upfront cost, I guess, because you already wanted to play lackeys in that deck, but the effect is kind of a little bit more immediate without, you don't get the 5-drop, but you get a 5/2 weapon, but it heavily relies on getting to 4 invoke cards, and I don't know that you're going to be able to make 4 invoke cards work. We'll find out.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We actually only have 4 rogue cards left to be revealed. We have 7 of them already. And the 2 invoke cards that we have are 1 mana, give a minion +1 attack, add a lackey to your hand. And
that's probably actually okay.
It's okay. It's Sinister Deal, right? It's a worse Sinister Deal.
It's cheap. That's what I like about it. It's cheap.
Give a minion +1 attack, invoke Galakron, so it's 1 mana, add a lackey to your hand sometimes. And then 3 mana, deal 3 damage to an undamaged character, add a lackey to your hand.
Don't like that one.
Okay.
That one no good.
I
wouldn't like that one if it cost 2 mana.
Yeah. And then we have the neutrals. 5 mana, 4/5 taunt, invoke Galakron. 4 mana, 2/2 rush, invoke Galakron. I'm not seeing it so far. Those aren't it.
Yeah.
Those are weaker than the Cthulhu cards.
Yes.
And that's yeah. And the new lackey, which we know,
and they're weaker than unnerfed. Oh my god, why can't I think of it?
Miscreant.
Yeah, unnerfed Miscreant.
Well, that's
that card was.
Yeah. And Draconic Lackey, we know the new lackey. It's 1 mana, 1/1 discover a dragon. Remember, you don't get a class bonus anymore. This is the worst lackey. It is definitely the worst one. Which is they're watering down the pool in favor of slow value, and that's probably the way to do it. I'm curious about how it'll work out. I'm not ready to be a naysayer yet, or doomsayer or whatever. But I just have a feeling that people are going to be looking at all these cool mid-range minions and then die on turn 6, and I'm curious. Because a worse Rotten Apple Bomb is just not the way to get Galakron invoked. That's just not going to happen. But we'll see. But hey, 2.5 hours. Well, at least we kept it short by taking the game mode that we're playing and making an entirely separate episode. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at CoinConcede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/CoinConcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CoinConcede. If you'd like some CC swag, head over to our new shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Viriatus, Number Theory, Itinerant Wizard, Donald, Pug Ugly, and Doge TK. Alright, well, I think we're both going to start by coin conceding to Appa. Couldn't be here tonight, had some family stuff going on that he had to attend to, so we're hoping that everyone's okay there, but we should have him on for the BG episode over the weekend or on Monday. Botticus.
Coin concede to ChanManV.
Yeah.
For coming on the show. It was great to have him on. Really just great person to talk to. Awesome to be able to pick his brain about all the new stuff in Hearthstone and outside of Hearthstone. Honestly, just there are too many coin concedes because this last week was so crazy. I'll try to get through as many as I can think of off the top of my head. Calm Before the Storm, everybody who was on the panel, it was fantastic. Had a great time doing that. Cora, who we saw in line for at Battlegrounds, and then we saw 3 more times in line at Battlegrounds, and I know she was doing a lot of that. It was great to see her out there. Daniel with Blizzlet, Andrew with the Happy Hearthstone, Wicked Good, who we hung out with a bunch, Tiago with HS Replay was great to meet, Gallo with Tempo Storm, we met him very briefly, really cool guy to talk to. We had a listener in line that I feel so bad that I don't remember your name, and I was like playing a game at the time, and we were trying to talk, and I was super awkward, and I apologize for that, but it was great seeing people just at the venue. So many more people that I'm forgetting, and I feel bad. Congrats to VK Lion for winning. That was huge. That was amazing. And honestly, most of all, Coin Concede to Hat is my partner in crime for the weekend. Had a great time. Would not have been as amazing of a BlizzCon without you there, buddy. And really just kind of put some chocolate syrup on top of this beautiful BlizzCon Sunday that I had. It was delicious.
Yeah. It's also, you forgot to coin concede to the shake machine at Denny's for working.
Oh yeah. Man, poor Angelo's. I don't know if you're getting my business next year.
We'll call ahead.
That
We'll
was a big misplay not having a chocolate shake. I was super disappointed.
Yeah.
But yeah, just amazing week. Thanks everybody so much thanks everybody at Blizzard for making it amazing, because honestly, without this company that we criticize sometimes, we praise other times, really just, fantastic weekend. And yeah, I couldn't be happier right now. Well, actually, I could be happier right now because I could be playing Battlegrounds, which I plan to do right after we click end and I upload my audio.
BG? Yeah. So
What did I say?
No, you said the right thing. I just BG.
Okay.
BG.
Yeah. BG.
And also, before I go into my coin concedes, we did a bunch of tiny bonus episodes, 3 of them. And we were also on a bonus episode in the Blizzlet feed, but we had 3 bonus episodes in our feed, tiny ones when we were talking, like, before we were eating 10 minutes, lots of background noise and whatever, very live, very raw. Listeners, we want to know from you, did you enjoy that? Do you want us to do that again the next time that we're around each other and doing those live recordings? Is it too spammy on your feed? Was the content not interesting? Or did you like getting that live in the moment broadcasting? The car one, I think we're definitely doing every time, because that kind of car recap is pretty important. And also, your apartment's far away. So plenty of time to talk about it. That was at like 12:30 in the morning on Saturday. We were both fried, completely fried, but it was really fun.
Thankfully for that episode, though, it kept me awake the whole time because I was constantly thinking. Like, I don't think I would have struggled, but it definitely was nice to have that outlet to be able to empty everything, because we just had so many thoughts over the weekend. It was I like, even if we don't publish it, I kind of just want to do it again, just because it felt like a good dump of information. And also, I have to say, because I already see it in your coin concede, but Linzel, Tinsel, and Chris, if it wasn't for Chris, I probably would not have been at BlizzCon. So shout out to Chris for getting me there.
Yeah, and there are way too many people to thank. But yeah, there are just so many people. So all the people that Bott already mentioned are all awesome people. I don't think. Let's see, we ran into Mage Death there. He was also on the panel. Didn't get to see him as much during the event, but I've learned to embrace con logistics. Just like, don't try and see everybody, because it's not going to happen. If you're around people, sure. If there are people you need to see, by all means, get there. But like, when you're ready for dinner, say, I'm going to this place right now, and give everyone 5 minutes to decide if they're coming with you, and your plans do not change. You are going to dinner in 5 minutes, and anyone that wants to come can, but that's it. Just like, let it happen.
That was so fantastic when I just threw out Denny's and we actually all just agreed to go to Denny's.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Cheap, quiet, not in the venue, super bird, Really good call. Just go. Just like do it. Yeah, Cora was awesome. Super, super nice all weekend. Like we were just chatting in the Hearthstone Tavern, and then she's like, "Oh, have you met Brian Kibler?" And then Brian Kibler's just right there, and like he comes over and we talk about Magic the Gathering from 2003, of course. And then like we go to take a picture, and then Cora's like, "Oh, Slissa, get in the picture." And like Slissa comes in, it's like, "Cora, do you know everybody?" Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Hadija, who she did the panel and is also like awesome, but we ran into her. She was just leaning on the wall on her cell phone in between events, and I had to come over and say something. And she's been super, super pleasant. We've chatted a little bit on Twitter. A really nice person, super great, and really helped me realize how important this event was to the employees as well as us, because they needed to see us enjoying their game so much after such a difficult year. And they really did a great job. Same with Hypo, she's an engineer for Blizzard. Alec is awesome. Alec's a star now. He's in the video. He's in the Descent of Dragons video, and like he was doing interviews all day, and he signed something for me. Like he's a star now. A really, really great guy. Rod Johnston. Let's see. Burnt. We ran into him actually on Friday night at the Marriott. Had some really kind things to say about the show. Just a generally really nice guy. So Burnt, thank you so much for listening. And glad we get to meet up to you. The hotel that we stayed in on Friday night, thank you for having a room. Really important. And Blizzard in general, and Chris Adelis, both is the same person. He's been doing a really great job with communication this past week, like publishing what the issues are, when they're going to be fixed, what's going on. Really helpful at getting us the Alec interview. Hopefully will be really helpful at getting us media passes next year. Just throwing it out there, not a big deal. But, go ahead. But also has just been a really nice guy and doing a great job. Too many people. Amazing BlizzCon.
Scoob Steven. Scoob. Great to hang out with him.
Scoob. Yep. And extra special final coin concede to Daniel's custom Cards Against Humanity cards. Which were about as silly as you think they are.
Oh, they were great.
And we're going to stop the show there, even though we could keep going for a while. So keep calm and BG. And if you see us on the ladder or in your 8-person lobby, coin concede.
I go home now. Boss will not like this.
You really sunk me ship.
You fiends have bested me. No wins today.
Back to the lamp. Our plans did not work.
I have no more time for this.
It's time to give up.